to order. Welcome to the July 28th, 2022 meeting of the Village of Pinehurst Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the commission is to decide applications for certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work within the Pinehurst Historic District, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when such applications come before us. By law, the commission is directed to take no action except to prevent construction or alterations that would be incongruous with the special character of the historic district. I am Eric Von Solzen, the chair of the commission, and I ask each commissioner, starting from my far left, to state his or her name for the record.
Richard Vincent.
Thomas Schroeder.
Kara Mathis.
John Taylor.
David Herring.
Commissioner Lertz is unavoidably absent, but we have a quorum, so we can proceed. I'd also like to ask members of our staff to introduce themselves.
Maria Carpenter.
Jen Constantino, our clerk. Thank you. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting. All commissioners have been provided with copies of the draft minutes. Does any commissioner have any changes to suggest? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. The minutes are approved. May I now have a motion to enter the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Their discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. We are now in the public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that anyone desiring to testify must be sworn in, and the commission is required to consider only facts presented in this hearing. The proceedings are video recorded. I ask the commissioners if they have visited any of the sites on our docket today and whether they have had any ex parte communications with respect to any of the cases we'll be considering today, starting with from my far left.
Richard Vincent. I've visited all the sites, no ex parte communication.
Thomas Schroeder. I visited all the sites and have no ex parte communications.
Eric Von Solzen and I also visited all the sites and had no ex parte communications.
Kara Mathis. I visited all of the sites and have had no ex parte communication.
John Taylor. Visited all. No ex parte communications.
David Herring, no communication.
In each case that the commission will hear this afternoon, staff will first present a summary of the application, the staff's evaluation of the extent to which the application complies with the commission's standards for such an application, or raises issues that require further information, the staff's comments on the application, and, where appropriate, the staff's recommendations for commission action. The application and its supporting documents, as well as the staff's detailed report, will then be entered into the record. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question staff about this report and testimony. Next, the applicant or the applicant's representatives will have an opportunity to provide any additional information supporting the application and to address any questions or issues identified in staff's testimony. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question the applicant witnesses. After the applicant's presentation, if any member of the public wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at that time and identify yourself. I will swear you in and give you an opportunity to present any reasons why you believe that the application should be granted or denied. Please remember, the commission is interested in facts that will help us decide whether the proposed work would be congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. As chair, I have the right to exclude testimony that isn't relevant to that subject, but I'm not required to do so. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question you about your testimony. If the applicant or staff wishes to respond to your testimony, I will permit them to do so. We will now proceed to our first case.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I did want to make note that the applicants for D and E did agree to switch those in the order on the agenda.
Okay.
My question, so we're going A, B, C, E, D?
That is correct.
Thank you for that clarification. Will all staff members who may give testimony, give evidence in this proceeding, please stand, raise your right hand, and state your name for the record?
Maria Carpenter.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you should give the commission with respect to all the cases on our docket today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated.
We got one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you over there. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. All right, our first case, COA 2022-00118, involving 25 Dogwood Road. Are the applicants present? Would you please come forward? If you stand by that microphone back there, I'll swear you in, and then you can be seated. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Brandon Haddock, Haddock.
Thank you. Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Would you please be seated? All right, will you proceed to present the case?
Great. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for a change to the front elevation of a detached garage on a previously approved COA 2022-00037 at 25 Dogwood Road. The property is identified as Moore County parcel ID number 000-19887, and the property owner is Lynn Huttaff, and applicant is Pinehurst Homes. The applicant requests the COA for a change to the front elevation of a detached garage. This was previously approved at 25 Dogwood Road with the COA 2022-00037. The modifications proposed consist of moving the location of the front door and windows, and they'll be changing the style and number of windows that were previously approved. The structure was built in 1895, and the property is approximately 0.37 acres in size. This is major work since it involves the eliminating or adding windows and doors. Public hearing was noticed in accordance with the PDO and the North Carolina general statutes. Here we have an applicant provided photo of the existing house. So you can see on the front of the house here, the front door with the two windows on the sides. And here you have the approved elevation and then the proposed elevation. There we go. So on the approved one, you can see the double doors here with the three windows. All right. And then, well, the proposed elevation, they're moving the one window to the other side. So there's a door or a window on each side of the doors. So they are eliminating one window, but they are moving them to each side of the doors, which matches the front of the existing home. So the applicable standards, here we have changes to existing residences, additions and accessory buildings, carriage houses, garage, and other buildings. Section 3.I.6 is windows and doors and additions and accessory buildings should be similar to those in existing primary structures in their proportions, spacing, and materials. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The request to change the entry door and windows would need to be deemed both compatible and similar with the primary structure per the standards. At this time, I'd like to formally admit into the record the staff report with attachments and exhibits, this presentation, and the application and applicant's materials and exhibits.
Without objection, the materials referred to by staff are admitted into the record. Do commissioners have any questions for staff? Yes, David?
It appears that, we may have missed this the first time around, the existing house has 2/2 windows. The proposed windows are 4/4.
That is correct.
Any other questions from staff? All right, hearing none, thank you. We will now hear from the applicant. Mr. Haddock, you have been sworn in. Is there anything in the presentation by staff that you disagree with or would like to revise or clarify, or anything that you would like to add in support of the application? This is your opportunity to do that.
We're making this change in an attempt to make the carriage house similar to the front of the house, which has already been stated, and that's, pretty much the main point of the presentation. It also creates a more balanced look when compared to the previously approved front elevation.
Can you put up Exhibit S-1.3? Okay, and oops, we missed it. There we go. Now, this exhibit shows, does it not, what's
Happens to me all the time.
It's delayed. Every time I click on something, it takes me. Oop, there we go. I'll get it. There we go. Okay.
Yeah. This exhibit shows, does it not, what you're proposing to change from what we previously approved to what you now want to do. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, I notice in the proposed elevation, between each of the two windows and doors, there's something that looks like maybe a lamp.
Yes, that would be sconce lights on either side of the door.
Those were not on your original application?
Or not?
So you want to add those as well?
Yes,
So it's not just the changes in the windows and doors, it's also adding the sconce.
that's correct.
It appears to me that there are some differences in the depiction of the material of the siding. Towards the roof, there's a different color on the new elevation, and there's what seem to be stripes in the lower area. Are those changes you were also proposing to
They're
make?
not, there's some, if you want to take a look at the plan, it's not, I don't know how it got that way up there. Maybe
Okay, so-
projection, maybe emailing the file. who knows?
Okay, so the whole thing is going to be the same materials and the same
Correct.
color for the whole face of that,
Yeah,
of the building?
that's correct. It's, currently it is a wood lap, and it'll be a composite lap, but the colors will be the same. Currently white, it will be white.
Bands, no.
No, the trim on it is
No
currently
racing
dark
stripe.
green, and the new trim will also be dark green, so it'll be very much in keeping.
Thank you.
Okay, so do I understand that you would like to amend your application to include those two sconces?
Correct.
Tell us something about the sconces. What are they?
The homeowner would like to have them there.
They're metal,
Yeah, I mean, yes, sir. It's an exterior light fixture.
okay? They're metal. What color are they?
Probably black.
Black,
but,
okay.
At this point, that may be to be determined.
Well,
It will be similar, to what's on the plan, but I don't think the color's specified.
okay, all right. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Yes, David?
We already approved the 4/4 windows. So I don't think I can require you to go to a matching 2/2, but would that be okay with you, to change the window type to 2/2?
I could certainly ask the homeowner, that'd be their decision.
That'd be great, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have one question. The two windows that are there now, are they original? Do you know?
Currently, there are no windows there.
Is it this?
That's in the original house, not in the,
Oh, yeah, no, I mean like the,
What's there now is a
Yeah.
garage door.
okay.
David, just for clarification, we didn't approve 4/4, we approved 6/6. Previous application, they're changing the 6/6 to the 4/4.
I beg your pardon, that's, okay, 4/4 is way better than 6/6. 2/2 even better.
Which is what he's got. Okay.
I will pass the message along, see what we get.
Thank you for that.
So what he's recommending is what we prefer. Is that correct?
It's better than what we previously approved, but not as good as it could be.
He can recommend the 4/4, and we like the 4/4 then.
That's what we're approving.
So that's what we're approving. Okay.
Doing is asking if he's willing to go to a 2/2. That would be fine, we can't require it.
my recollection is that we talked about that at the time of the original COA approval. I don't remember what the substance of that was, but it was noted that they were different than what was on the existing house, the main structure.
We may want to revisit what we've just been talking about when we come to drafting the motion on this case. But we don't have to do that now. Any other questions from the commissioners of the applicant? Hearing none. As I said earlier, if there's any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. I see no volunteers. Therefore, that concludes the evidentiary portion of our hearing, unless a member of the commission has any further questions for either the applicant or staff. All right, therefore, the record is closed, and we will have a discussion and/or a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
David, you may make a motion.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness and find the proposed major work at 25 Dundee Road as consistent with the Historic District standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. And I'd like to add a note that if the applicant wishes, 2/2 windows would be preferable to the hereby approved 4/4.
Do we have any condition on the color of the lamps which have been added, the sconces?
Well, I was going to ask, because that's not technically part of our application, the application that was filed with us. It's been amended at the hearing. And so therefore, David, if your motion is intended to sconces, I think it needs to stay as amended at the hearing. If it's not, then not.
David, can we make sure to, I think you said Dundee, but this is Dogwood, right?
I beg your pardon, Dogwood.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, good point. And as for Eric's suggestion, so shall it be. I would also like to include in the amendment that the light fixtures must be one of the approved metal accessory colors in the standards.
Motion as amended, seconded.
Second.
Any discussion?
Question for staff. Where do we govern that in the standards? Not to put you on the spot, Maria.
Well, I was trying to rack my brain, trying to figure that out, and I'm not
What, Richard?
sure that.
Just the question is where we would find that in the standards. Where's the section that deals with exterior light light fittings or light fixtures. Only reason I say this, I think in 50-plus cases, I've never had it come up before, so it's
And I don't
new
see
to
it
me.
referenced, I don't see it referenced in the table of contents either.
I'd caution against,
There is a section, I'm not sure exactly where, that deals with metal accessories and what colors are allowed. It doesn't specifically relate to only light fixtures.
without having to define the definition of a sconce versus an accessory, but I do think we need to be careful and just make sure we've got something to refer back to.
My understanding would be that in a case like this, the applicant needs to coordinate with staff to make sure that the precise item that's being installed is approvable. We don't have to approve it, but the staff's going to inspect this building when it's completed. And if you put, something that's, Disney purple with Tinkerbell on top, it might not be approved. Right? I don't think we have to be more precise than that.
It has to comply with the standards, because the only thing we can truly enforce is the standards.
Right.
So if it's in the standards, yes. If that particular thing is not in the standards, then we're outside of our jurisdiction.
Congruous with the historic district, then perhaps not, but
So, I mean, that's what, to go to your extreme, Tinkerbell light would not meet the rules and regulations. You got to have one to see whether it meets it or not.
I mean, we could be hard-nosed about this and,
Oh, I know.
and not amendment that adds these light fixtures. That seems to be unnecessary. And
Buddy, there was
and-
a section of the standards for which applied. If it doesn't-
Yeah, I mean, arguably, it's on page 32, item M, architectural metals, but it doesn't relate to light fixtures specifically. Architectural metal features must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. Architectural metal features such as copper, tin, brass, cast iron, wrought iron, lead, and turned plate that contribute to the overall character of the structure and site should be retained and preserved, and so forth.
As long as they meet that standard, then I think they're fine.
Gives us something.
And that's better than making you come back again with a new application just to cover those light fixtures.
Right, so that would fall under basic work and routine maintenance.
So then they can approve
it's
it
not
under
that-
that standard.
Okay. Now, we have a motion. I believe that there's been a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Richard?
Mind if I hear that motion again? Did you include the color to the light fitting or the light fixture in the motion?
I did. That it shall meet the standards. Let's add the phrase
Would you be willing to
architectural
amend it?
metal standards. Or yeah, let me change what did I say, 132?
It's going to be handled as a basic work.
But I don't, because it's basic work, unless they agree, I don't think it's something that you can,
We're saying take the light fixtures out of the,
If you would amend your motion to remove that part of it,
The color part?
the light fitting, the
Light
light
fixtures.
fixture.
so be it. Remove the light fixture.
Back to what he originally said.
So you moved to approve the application as originally submitted, which doesn't include the light fixtures.
That's correct.
Second agrees to that change?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the members of the commission. Richard?
Aye.
Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes.
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness. All right. Our next case, assuming I'm gotten out of order, is COA 2022-00125 involving 204 Dundee Road. Am I correct? Okay. Is the applicant present? The applicant is present with a box of materials and somebody else carrying some more stuff. All right, will you stand by the microphone, please? First, please state your names for the record.
Mark Markowitz.
I'm Scott Halsey.
Okay? And will you each raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Maria, would you present the case, please?
The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for the construction of an addition to include a bedroom, bath, and screened-in porch at 204 Dundee Road. The property is identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000-17853. The property owners are Mark and Pam Markowitz, and the applicant is Scott Halsey. The applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of an addition, including a bedroom, bathroom, and a screened-in porch. The property is identified as parcel number 000-17853. The original home was built in 1945, and the property is approximately 0.53 acres. The proposed addition will be compliant with setbacks and located in the side and rear yard. The exterior siding material is proposed to be gray fiber cement siding with white wood trim to match the existing house. This is major work that needs a certificate of appropriateness because it is a new construction or addition, not considered to be minor work, and there are changes to the roof lines. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the PDO and the North Carolina general statutes. You can see the parcel here, 204 Dundee Road. You might want to take notice of the fact that there is no front of the house showing on any public right-of-way. So it is back off the road, off of this easement to get to the property. Here's a photo of the existing home. And also on your tables, you'll have to share, but he did provide some copies of where the addition will be, pictures of the house, and where you're looking at it from, landscaping, you have all that good stuff there. Here you can see the original home is right here. Here will be the addition of the bedroom, the bathroom, and then on the rear of the house will be the screened-in porch. Here we have the elevations of the home, so you can see the front, and the highlighted area here is the addition from the front of the house, what you would see. In the rear of the house here, you have the screened-in porch and the rear of that addition. And then the left side elevation, this is what the addition will look like. Applicable standards, there are a lot of them, so I'm not going to read all of this, but it will have to deal with changes to the roof lines, exterior walls and trim, windows and doors. Addition, since it is an addition to the home, and of course paint colors will apply. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The request for the proposed new addition would need to be deemed both compatible and consistent with the standards of the Historic District Guidelines. At this point, I would formally enter into the record the staff report with the attachments and exhibits, this presentation, and the application and applicant's material and exhibits.
Without objection, the materials referred to are admitted into the record. Do the commissioners have questions for staff?
I do have questions. These are going to be exhibits? These meaning the additional?
All of those are also in your packet, so yes.
Okay, and they're marked? Okay. Why did we get them again then? I'm confused.
He provided them so you'd have something else to look at, so.
Okay, I think.
Any other questions? Hearing none, now we'll hear from the applicants. You've been sworn in. Is there anything in the presentation by staff that you disagree with or would like to revise or clarify, or anything that you would like to add in support of the application? This is your opportunity to do that, so please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. I'd just like to add, one, that's a terrible picture of the house, by the way. Isn't it? There's much better pictures than that. Secondly, the real goal of what we're trying to do here is, expand this home for use for the family. We have been here since 2019. We've got, we've been in Pinehurst for a long time, and our whole goal is to use it and maintain the historical standards. So I don't think there's anything in the application that wouldn't mimic what we currently have on the property today.
Anything you'd like to add?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and again, thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Yeah, I just look around at all the rest of the properties around and, just that are adjacent to this particular property. And it looks to me like this one probably doesn't fit in because of the size that it is. I mean, everything around it appears to be like, a couple thousand square feet or something larger than that. And this being smaller, this would actually, I think, make this particular property more appropriate by being the size that we're trying to make it. So with that being said, I just feel like it's a good job for me, but I like working in the village too. So everything we do, we try to maintain, standards that we always try to make it look like it's been there. And that's our goal. That's our goal, to make it look like it wasn't added on. So, thank you. And there's some more color samples and stuff for like the window colors and that if you need to see
I think the
more realistically.
I think the exhibit, Scott, would probably show the colors of the property better than the picture that you put on the overhead. And obviously, everything will be consistent with what we're proposing.
Yeah, I mean, these samples here are like the actual siding that is on the house and that we would use and the colors of the foundation.
Were these part of what you originally submitted with your application?
Yes, sir. Well, we basically submitted everything to be consistent with or match what's existing.
So, did you, in other words, submit that a piece of board and a brick, or photographs of the board and the brick? Okay, all right. So those are the same
We have to
things.
speak up.
He has to be next to the microphone.
Oh.
Not catch it. Sorry, I mean, it's what we have to do for the record.
I got you. But no, these are just actual materials and sample colors of what we'll be using. So I thought they'd be helpful at the meeting today in case anybody wanted to see.
There's no objection to your doing that. I just want the record to
And
be.
then the wood for the soffits and trim and stuff like that and the color that it's going to be. So that's,
And what's the red? Where is the red? Is that window trim?
yes, that's the window
That
trim.
you can't see, well, to the previous conversation, there's 6x6 windows. They're painted that color red for trim, yeah. Your paper exhibits might show it better than.
Yeah, I have real pictures, but it actually comes off as like brown or black, but I see it.
Yes, or this color, this is the color here.
Any questions for the applicant witnesses? Richard?
On Exhibit A 3.2, it's the elevation slide.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have one from the right side, do you? We were provided left.
No,
I'm probably going the same way David's gonna go here, but the question I'd have is, I know on one of these other pages, the picture from the back of the house.
Right.
It's kind of a strange roof situation where you have the overhangs. It's almost like a shed roof that comes down.
There is,
I
yeah.
see that you've tried to mimic that
Yeah.
because it kind of keeps with what you got there now, but the hip roof addition on the other side, that elevation looks normal, like you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, if we saw the right side elevation, you would see a long shed sort of roof that would square off on the end and not tie back into the roof.
Yeah, pretty much what you see now is, or what's there, what we'll be putting on will be more or less the same. There's a shed roof there now, it'll just
Yeah.
get bigger. It'll just get bigger.
I guess,
Shed will go, where it ties into the roof will go all the way to the ridge instead of tying in about halfway down the slope of the roof that's there now.
I should have asked a more direct question. Did you want it to look like that, or were you doing that because you felt like we would want to see that, or that was more complementary to what you had existing on the back of the house?
Well, I feel like in this situation, less is more. I mean, you don't want to complicate it or trick it up with anything fancy, and since what's there now is a shed roof, this would just be the same basic design shed roof. It would just have to go closer to, where it ties into the roof, it would just have to be closer to the ridge because the fact that we're coming out about 10 or 11 feet. But it'll maintain basically the same slope, the same pitch. So it really won't change, maybe by a degree or two on the rise.
May I?
Yeah.
I'm having trouble seeing how you can make that work unless the slope of the shed roof is about half of the slope of the existing roof, which is, I'm not saying that's good or bad, since we don't have the right elevation, it's difficult to tell what it looks like. Thankfully, it's not visible from anywhere.
Yeah, true. You're really not going to.
But I guess it would be a caution, if nothing else, that make sure you figure out how to do that roof before, because it's a tricky one.
Yeah, but it's basically it will be the same, pretty much the same pitch. It won't be really any.
Got
hardly
twice
any
as far to
steeper.
travel and the same height.
Pardon me?
Got twice as far to travel.
No, that was my comment earlier, was where it ties into the existing roof. Right now, it'll have to tie in higher to the ridge to come out further.
Right, which is about half the normal, the existing slope.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, the slope shouldn't change.
Unless is the eave line that much higher, or is the eave line more or less consistent?
Well, the ridge line is.
The eave line.
Yeah, around the back of the house, it seems pretty consistent.
A little bit higher
Yeah,
on
it's
the
just-
existing
it
shed.
it may be slightly higher,
So
but it's pretty consistent all the way around the house now.
good luck.
Well, that'll actually go away, though. It'll just be, yeah. Yeah, because we're going to take that off and go above it anyway.
So if I can ask a follow-up to David, and this is not us saying yea or nay, it's just trying to better understand what that elevation will look like. So where that shed roof comes off the back on the rear elevation, if we were looking from the right side,
Yeah.
do you have siding up there at the peak, or is it open? Because right now, it's just a shed roof, it's open, but I'm assuming you may fill that triangle up there at the peak with something, or is
Yeah,
it screened in
typically,
going all
we
the way
would
to
do
the top?
siding, yeah, in this situation, because the ceiling will be flat, so we would fill that, what's basically a triangle like that with siding.
So the same
yeah.
materials for the addition on the other
Right.
side, you're going to mimic it, trim, all the
Yeah.
rest?
Yeah, right now, there's a little bit of a soffit there
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
existing siding that's consistent, I guess.
Yeah, and all that, what's there now is just going to go away. We're going to go on top of it so there's two different little pitches there now, and it's going to clean everything up once we're done with it. So.
I'm a bit concerned with the record that we have here doesn't really show what we're talking about. And that's basically what these two are mentioning, and this record needs to be a legal standing of what we're going to end up with here. Otherwise, we get into real quagmire, because if it don't work the way it is, then you come back here and do this all over again. The record has to stand on its own two legs. And if we don't have a good, clear concept of what it's going to look like, then the record is deficient.
Tom, as a corollary to that comment, which I agree with, how will staff know whether what is actually constructed conforms to whatever it is we approve if we approve it?
Unless the record's fully documented.
I guess I'm asking, does staff have any additional documentation that bears on this issue?
No.
I'm not trying to be cranky about it. The record has to stand on its own merits to be good for two reasons. One, legally, it's required to stand on its own merits. And two, staff has to be able to walk away with it. And when the building inspector goes over there, say, yeah, this is what they approved. And if it's not in the record, they can't make that determination. See what I'm saying? I mean, I guess my question is, am I being clear? There's two issues there, both of them the same way, raised two different ways. So we need that clarity in this document.
Do you have, in an effort to help you tonight with this application, do you have any materials on your phone or your email where you have the right side elevation that would solve this?
I can show you.
And maybe there's a way you can email it to staff and we could pull it up?
Yeah, we have a picture of the back of the house.
Give me one
too.
second.
I've got one on my iPad right here if you'd like to see.
We've got, it's not necessarily the current conditions back of the house, what you're proposing to do.
Oh, this is what we're proposing. That right there. That's what it's going to look like when we're finished.
No, I understand that, but we're missing one side. So what we're getting at is,
Yeah.
okay, if you've explained what the side's going to look like, but if someone goes out there and says, well, this is what they approved, we haven't approved that side elevation with hardy, with trim, so for the record, we need to have a really good description of what that's going to look like, because that's what you,
Right side of the property?
correct. If you have a drawing of that, that'd be really helpful.
I have a picture.
Not of the existing, but of the proposed.
Well, there would be, because there is going to be, that part was what you would refer to as maybe a half of a gable end up there. It's going to be framed with siding on it. It's going to look like the rest of the house, so we'll need to provide a picture for
The
it.
screen porch has to tie into it.
Pardon me?
The screen porch has to tie into it, so that if we had a right side elevation, it would look different than it does today.
Well, yeah, we can get you a right side elevation. I mean, but sitting here right now, it's going to be, basically a framed wall that's going to have the same siding on it and looks like it's supposed to look, just like the rest of the house. I mean, it's going to be finished the same way with the same trim, the same siding.
Do you have a drawing that you could follow up with staff?
Yeah, I can do one. And this, honestly, we got these drawings from, we don't have a final plan. This is how it's going to be, so what everything's going to look like from the outside. So, we're not complete with what we're going to take and submit for the building inspections department to get the permit yet. But this is what it'll look like from the outside, and I apologize for not having that little gable picture over there, but it'll look like it's supposed to, and we can provide that to staff, yeah.
Do you understand that we who have to pass on this application need to understand what it is that you're proposing?
Mhm.
And looking at the illustration that's now up on the screen, we've got 3/4 of the building. And the issue that some commissioners have concerns about is whether that fourth side will actually work, or how will it work, which you haven't shown us.
Right, it will work,
That-
yeah.
That's
but,
our concern. And then the secondary concern is when the staff goes out after the construction is complete, they have to be able to determine that what it is that you built is what we approved. And if we don't make it clear what we're approving, then they can't make that determination. And we can't make clear what we're approving unless we understand what you put before us. And at least speaking for myself, I don't understand it.
Let me, without speaking for anyone else other than myself, if we had to take no action on the application and you had to come back a month from now, is that a particular burden? I'm sure it's not ideal, but staff can't approve it. We have to approve it. And we can't approve it if we don't understand it.
Yeah, they just need a picture.
Or if we're unclear as to what it is we like to know what it is we're approving.
What you're asking for is a right side elevation.
Yeah.
And ideally, a roof plan. A roof plan would be helpful as well. A roof plan would be helpful as well.
Yeah.
How that is going to tie in from a right side perspective.
Yes.
Because everything else, I think, is there.
Yeah, it'll basically, when that right side elevation is approved or submitted, it will show that the ridge that the rafter that will frame that roof will go nearly or probably right to the ridge, the main ridge in the house, in order to give it the sufficient pitch to get to that exterior wall.
You can put that on paper, we're good.
Well, I can probably do it how long are y'all gonna be here?
You want to draw it up?
I got a drawing board, and I usually draw. I didn't draw these particular plans. but
We
I
have
draw
3
my
other
plans.
cases to consider. If they
Yeah.
do,
We have done this before.
Yeah.
We want to work with you. I mean,
I usually have my drawing board out in the truck too, and shoot, it's at the house
well,
right
the
now.
intent here is, I'm not going to speak for all the commissioners. I can see it. You've explained it to me. I can see what it looks like. The question is, okay, I'm thinking it, but that doesn't suffice for getting in the record, and that's what we're approving.
Yeah,
Now,
approve it,
that may not be for other people
I
here.
think I understand it, but I'm not sure my understanding is the same as his understanding until we get it committed to paper.
No, I appreciate your
That's where
situation.
that's
But
where
it's
the
more
problem.
about appearance than it is construction, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's out of our purview.
Construction's out of it, that goes back into the building plan when you have to submit that. We want to see what the outside looks like. And we can't. I think I know what you're saying. He thinks he knows what we're saying, and David thinks he knows, and so the rest of us, but we have no idea that what we're saying
I got you.
is different.
Well, I don't want to.
'Cause they got nothing to point to.
Just given your comment about where it is, location-wise, rear end, not that big, is there any other thing that could be done outside of redrawing it and submitting it?
The only thing we approve are drawings. You know, we don't approve built products. I guess you could bring in a model, but it's,
well, I think a drawing is the only way for all 7 of us to
Yeah.
think that we are approving the same thing.
And I mean, it doesn't have to be, as long as we can understand it and
Yeah.
get it in, so you have time.
Okay.
That right side elevation is going to be the busiest elevation, because your
Yeah,
new
right,
addition
yeah.
on the other side protrudes even a little bit further than the new patio, so you're going to see several different extensions to the back of the house.
Yeah.
How much time would you like?
It'd probably take me 15 or 20 minutes to draw a sketch, so, but these people have to meet, they gotta have their meetings, so can we come back?
It's up to the chair, but we could bump you back to the back end of the story, and if you're
Okay.
ready, by the time we get to what would normally have been our last case, to come back and show us the final part.
I've got all night.
we don't.
No, I know,
You
you
don't
got,
mind. We got to be here.
I know.
Let me ask the commissioners, have we asked all the questions other than this particular roof question that we need to? Because we don't, if we're going to take a recess in this case, we're going to come back for only that one issue.
Okay, but that one issue could raise other
Yes,
questions.
I understand. I
Okay,
understand.
that's my point.
Yeah, I
So I
guess
can't answer your question directly. Are there other things that I might ask? maybe, maybe not, depending on what I see that's presented to us.
Understood.
I
That's
think, I
legit.
can think of one that is like, that he will have to face, and that is, how do you get up to the screen porch? The door is several steps up, and now where do the steps go, and what do they look like? So
Oh, should
it's
be
not
on
just
there,
the
too.
roof, it's the whole,
That could be on the drawing that he
it
hopefully
could be,
prepares.
yes.
Did you understand that last part that we were talking about, steps,
Pardon me?
David?
How do you get up? We're talking about what else would it be good for you to include?
Yeah,
and
there's just a little
one of
stoop
those
right there
has
in
to
front
do
of
with
it.
how you get up to the porch.
Yeah, there's a small stoop right there on the back elevation, so you'd see it from the side. Maybe
But the-
right there on the rear elevation, there's a
I think
screen.
that's shown on the rear elevation.
Yeah, it's shown on the rear elevation.
Very barely, you can see it, there's
Yeah.
a step.
And it's so close to the
Okay, I
ground, there might be 2 steps, maybe. It's nearly on grade.
So they would show on that,
Yeah, they
on
would-
that
the
right-hand
side view of
elevation
it,
as well,
yeah.
that you would include those on there.
They would be on there too, yeah.
Do I take it that you are requesting a continuance of your case to allow you to address the issues that we've been talking about?
Yes, sir, and I apologize. We didn't think about it, Mark and I didn't think
This-
that would.
This happens. I mean,
Okay.
Not a judgment, we just have
All right.
standards we've got to meet too.
I got you. I understand. It doesn't matter to me. Well, here, we got to tell them something. so.
There's really two options here. We can
Okay.
either wait and you can go try and do it now, and if you're back here by the time we've got everybody else done, we'll take a look at it. If not, or you can wait until next month and come back at that point, whichever you would prefer. I don't think there's a difference that we would have.
Can we reschedule for next?
We are certainly likely to be here at least another 15 minutes. I'd even say 20.
Would you prefer to be continued until, I'm sorry, what?
Have to come back. We'll have to come back.
Next month?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me, the applicant has made a motion to continue this hearing.
Date and time.
Before,
Yes.
we do have the option to see a case before the end of the month if commissioners are able to do so. That may be something.
But we have to, if we're going to recess it, we have to recess it to a date and time.
And I do not expect to be.
I
in
know
town.
Alex's statement on this one was coming, so I thought I'd beat him to
What is the date of the next meeting?
That's what I was just
25th, I
looking at.
think. August 25th, I believe.
Third Thursday.
And I, for one, will not be here between now and then, but I'm only one person.
The next scheduled one is August 25th. And it would be at 4 o'clock, right?
Yes.
4 PM on August 25th.
My wife's out of town. Okay. I'll be back at the end of the meeting. We'll be back
today.
Yeah.
They back today?
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Give it a try.
All right, just a moment, we're going to have a motion here.
Move
May
to
I have,
continue.
may I have a motion to continue this hearing till later on today at the close of the other cases?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion has been made, seconded, and granted. So we will see you later on this afternoon.
How long is the meeting scheduled till?
You've got several cases behind you,
So you'll be
Frame
put to the back end of
approximately
the story.
Hour?
maybe more.
45 minutes for sure, probably an hour.
All right. And for the benefit of anybody else in the room who was planning to have comments on this case, you'll have your opportunity to do that when the applicant's case is concluded. But at this point, we will turn to our next case on the docket, which is COA 2022-00137 involving 5 McLeod Road. Is the applicant present? Yes, would you come forward, please? Would you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Jacob Kirby, Kirby.
Thank you. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please come forward and be seated. Maria, would you present the case, please?
purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for a change of materials on a roof overhang on a previously approved COA, COA-2022-00037, and the addition of shutters. The property is identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000-26593. The property owner and applicant is Jared Gowdy. The applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness for a change in materials previously approved for a roof overhang from asphalt shingles to gray metal roofing, and the addition of shutters with a natural cedar stain to match those existing on street-facing windows at 5 McLeod Road. The structure was built in 1979, and the property is approximately .379 acres in size. This is major work since it involves a replacement of roofing with a different material or style from that being replaced. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the PDO and North Carolina general statutes. And here you can see the property, it fronts on McLeod Road. There's our parcel right there. Here is a photo of the existing home. So the metal roof overhang is right here, and they are requesting the addition of shutters right here to match the ones that were previously approved. Here you go, another picture closer of the metal roof and what the shutters will look like. The applicable standards are changes to existing residences, roofs, since it is a change in the material on the roof, and shutters and awnings. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The material change from asphalt shingles previously approved to metal roofing, as well as the addition of shutters on the front of the house to match the existing shutters, would need to be deemed consistent with the historic district standards. At this time, I'll submit into the record the staff report with attachments and exhibits, this presentation, the application, and the applicant's materials and exhibits.
Without objection, the materials referred to are admitted into the record. Do commissioners have questions for staff?
I do.
Go, Dave.
Could we please see the previously approved elevation?
Okay.
Sorry, Alex.
Maybe while you're calling that up, let me add a
I was gonna take a
corollary
minute.
question.
November.
It appears that the metal roof has already been installed. Is this
That is correct.
after the ex post facto request? And apropos of our work session, we have 3 windows here to which we're proposing to add 2 shutters.
The stuff we were talking is not approved, so,
Is it,
but it shows what we were talking about, yes.
the existing shutters do not appear that they would cover the existing openings. Do we have dimensions for the proposed shutters?
If it's any help, John, I've actually scaled off the photograph. They're about 3/4 the width, roughly speaking.
But it's only one set of shutters they're proposing, right?
It's one shutter on 3 windows, that's right. The house has been sold. This is a request per the young military family. They just think it would look good.
But
So
do we have
what we see is already in existence. Is that correct on the photos?
Correct.
Those
Right.
shutters are already there. We're only talking about one set of shutters, half of it on one side of the 3
It's
windows.
under the
and
3
other half
windows on the overhang, right.
Could we see that same elevation from the photograph, the front elevation? It's, I guess, the approved front elevation.
Right, and
There you go.
and you could see on clarifying on the metal was there originally. I wasn't here in the original meeting. I was out of the country.
Okay, so if I understand it right, my question to staff, we approved a metal roof.
No, during the meeting, I believe the other guy that was here, for some
During
reason.
the other meeting, he was asked which type of roofing he was going to put on there, and he said the asphalt shingles.
I understand. Secondly, the approved elevation shows shutters that clearly match the windows. That is to say, each shutter leaf covers the window adjacent to it. However, if I look at what's built, it does not comply
Talking about size.
as to size, width. So what's built does not meet our previous approval, and I'm very reluctant to now say match what's there when what's there ain't right.
Well, it looks like they would just need, you're right, to add another 1x6 to each side to cover it.
That might work.
I think that would work, yeah.
Close anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
That's up to the building inspector, but I bet they're going to say something about it is the point.
What's that?
The size of the current ones that you've got on there
Oh, I
don't
don't,
meet
yeah,
what's required.
I think he's already been and gone. I think he missed that. You guys picked it up. I missed that one too on the size of the shutters, but I typically agree with you. I like them to cover the window.
let's see, any further questions of staff?
So this metal is already there.
The metal is correct. I mean, the reason I think Jared did that is before I left the country, looking back at October, is we were having a really hard time getting metal. Tony with Elite at the time was telling me to quit doing metal accents everywhere because we were basically building houses and doubling up ice shield just to wait for the metal to get in. And so I thought this was going to go a whole lot quicker. Turns out I had a big job in CCNC with a lot of metal. We had some left over that was the same color. And so we put it on there because I believe the metal looks better. It also, the pitch isn't high enough to quite qualify what building code would actually need for shingles, which is a 3.5 on 12. So technically, metal is the more appropriate material for that pitch of roof.
It's a massive improvement.
Thank you. That's right, you live down on the street there.
Any further questions for the applicant?
Yes, for the applicant, we're on to the applicant?
Yes.
Yes, would you be willing to amend your?
Flipped over to the applicant. I didn't had anybody noticing?
That's okay. Would you be willing here tonight to change your application to include correcting the errors that are currently built insofar as the shutters go?
Absolutely, yeah, we could do that. I mean, if, I think y'all would be more than generous if you allowed the other shutters on the other if I did that, yeah.
So if we were to say match the existing, we don't really mean existing. We mean correcting.
Correcting, right.
Yeah, okay.
4 instead of 3, I believe they did, I think it's 3 1x6s. Is that right on the picture? I'm just guessing.
I think our motion could perhaps include that as a condition.
Any further questions for the applicant?
What would y'all like as far as going there? I mean, so it's the same width? Yeah, that's what it would need to be.
I mean, I would assume the same width as the
Yeah, it
other
would need to be 4.
two
Yeah.
window set.
Yeah.
We're not going to.
I can do that in the motion if you want.
Right. But I mean, it would be the same as the rest, matching the rest of them as corrected.
Yes.
Correct.
As a point of procedure, we might want to approve to cover the windows and amend the previous to expand the existing ones to then match the newly ones we are now approving.
But if you look at it, there's some pieces in there, you aren't going to put them in the middle anyway, unless you redesign that overhang.
Yeah, there's the 2 there. The ones that he had drawn on the end don't work because obviously the way that the overhang, they wouldn't catch anything.
That was not something you intended on doing, it's something that the purchaser of the house has requested, right?
The shutters on the end here? Correct. Because I'm actually typically on board with you guys. I prefer them to be more functional, whether they are or not, but, correct.
I mean, not that you're being held to this, but it almost, in my humble opinion, look more appropriate with matching corbels to pick that up as opposed to.
Right, the
shutters.
corbels on the left and the right actually have to, they won't work. They won't,
Extend far enough?
right.
Okay.
Like you can't tell it from here, but it kind of goes back. So like the way the window and the roof is, there's nowhere for it to attach on the vertical side like there is in the middle.
agree.
Any further questions for the applicant? Hearing none. As I said earlier, if there is any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. I see none. Therefore, unless any member of the commission has any further questions for either the staff or the applicant, the evidentiary portion of this case is closed, and we may deliberate or entertain a motion. Who would like to do that?
Make a motion. I move the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness and find the proposed, oh, that's demolition. This really isn't demolition.
We don't want to demolish this house,
No.
not after all
And
the
find
trouble we've gone to.
And find that the
I don't think
proposed
one either.
major work at 5 McLeod Road is not consistent with historic district standards, but is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, the findings of fact, and the following list of conditions. Number one, the existing shutters installed under a previously approved application shall be corrected to be the same width as the adjacent window. Number two, the new shutters shall match the corrected existing shutters. Did I miss anything?
He's asking for, I think.
That's what you want, right?
That's right, yeah, I
Okay,
think that's
all right,
more than fair,
okay.
yeah.
Is there a second?
I
Second it.
All right, we've got a couple of seconds.
The metal roof?
Part of the base motion. No condition on the
No,
metal roof.
no change on that.
Right.
I think you said approve. I think you meant approve with conditions.
Oh, wait a minute. The metal roof was never previously approved, was it?
I'm approving what he's now applying for, which is the metal roof.
Didn't hear that mentioned in your motion, is the question.
It wasn't a condition, it was just I approve the application.
Got it. Yep, now I understand. Good.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Richard?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Eric, aye. Kara?
Aye.
John, aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness. It wasn't easy, but you got it.
Hey, we were one day away from being here today to try to do a garage on the back. Right before we were about ready to do the application, these people came in and bought the house because we were really getting a ton of feedback. People wanted a garage. So this is a whole lot easier than that would have been.
Glad to hear what you said about shutters, however. I think if there were more people in your line of work who felt that way about shutters, we'd be a lot happier.
All right, guys, have a good one.
All right, now, let's see, we've moved the last two cases around, is that correct? So the next case is 15 Beulah Road, is that right? Okay. The next case on our docket is COA 2022-00132 involving 15 Beulah Hill Road North. Is the applicant present? Would you please state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Margaret Ann Ellis.
And would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please come forward and be seated. Welcome once more to the Historic Preservation Commission.
I wish they'd get this done so I can stop changing it,
We wouldn't argue with that.
right?
We'd be sorry not to have you before us every so often.
Well, you know, I still have hardscape, so I'll be back.
All right. Maria, will you present the case? Oh, are you presenting this?
Alfred.
Alfred.
I'm presenting the case, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness, within the Pinehurst Historic District to install a French door to the east side rear of the property. The property is identified as Moore County, tax ID number as 000155557. The property owners are Craig and Margaret Ellis, and the applicant is Margaret Ellis. The applicant, excuse me. Can you go back? Go back, go back. We're currently having issues with the mouse. Hold on, please. Thank you. Thank you. Jesus. The applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness to install a French door to the east side rear of the property. On February 24th, 2022, the Historic Preservation Commission approved a window addition to the east rear of the applicant's property. The installation of the French door will be installed to the east side of the property if approved by the HPC committee instead of the previously approved window. The structure was built in 1976, and the property is approximately 0.61 acres in size. Major work will include adding or eliminating windows and doors. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance. This is an area view of the property. 15 Beulah Hill Road intersects between McKenzie Road West and Cherokee Road. This is a panoramic view of the property location in the rear. The first picture would be the location of the French door. The second picture is a double French door at the rear of the property. The third picture is a French door at the rear of the property. The proposed French door will match the existing French door in the third window. And the fourth picture is an exterior frame where the French door will be installed. This is an elevation drawing of the approved east rear side of the property that the French door will be installed instead of the previous window requested that was approved by the HPC back in February. If you can look at the proposed elevation, the location of the proposed French door will be on the east rear side wall of the property. The proposed height and width of the French door is 36 by 80. The proposed French door will have a total of 10 glass frames. The proposed French door trim is white. The proposed French door will match the existing French door in the rear in style, color, frames, length, and width. And this is the improved elevation that was approved by the Historic Preservation Commission on February 23rd, 2022. According to the applicable standards, I'm not going to read each and every one. I'm just going to highlight on a few. Section 3.C.1, adding new windows and door openings or altering or filling existing openings should not compromise the architectural character of the structure. It must be congruous within the Pinehurst Historic District. Section 3C.4, if repair or replacement of an entire door, window, feature, or decorative detail is necessary, it should be limited to the minimum amount necessary and replaced in kind, matching the original in composition, dimension, size, shape, color, patterns, and textures. Section 3C.6, Windows and doors surrounded and trim should match the original door or window surrounds and trim. The applicant has submitted an application to provide additional documentations in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The French door the applicant proposes will be installed on the property's rear east side. The proposed French door will replace the previous approved rear window that would have been installed on the east side of the property that the Historic Preservation Commission approved. The French door to the east side of the property will match the French door in the rear regarding style, color, grid, length, and width. According to the applicant, the proposed door will not be visible from the street. At this time, staff would like to submit the following to record: staff report with attachments and exhibits, presentation, application and applicant's material and exhibits. This concludes staff's report.
Without objection, the materials referred to by staff are admitted into the record. Do commissioners have questions for staff?
I do. Just to clarify, this new French door is to match the existing French doors on the house.
Yes, sir. I can turn back to the page. Hold on one second.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
And one other question, you showed a previous elevation that we have approved that did not have a window in it.
That is correct.
The application that says here that we are replacing a window with a door.
That is incorrect.
Yes, sir.
It's incorrect. This elevation was never
Ma'am,
presented.
just to keep the record straight, we'll get to you. Don't worry.
So is the application to replace a window with a door, or is the elevation not showing the window? Or was there not a window?
Back in February, it was before I came on board, the HPC did approve a window, but the applicant decides that she wants a French door instead of the window.
We'll discuss with the applicant.
Any further questions for staff? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Ellis, what would you like to say on behalf of your application?
Well, actually, having had the benefit of hearing the prior hearings, I do need to modify this application and also ask for, I think, the change in the roof that we were just considering a modification that really wouldn't need any approval. We took, instead of having a gap between our porch and our back addition, to get the HVAC ductwork through, we extended the porch, and I did do a drawing. And you can see it in Alfred's picture that he's presenting with the back elevation. But to clarify also what I am asking for, on June 13th, I did put in an application asking this door to be located on the south elevation, which did have an existing window, which you approved. After I saw the run of this wall, I thought, you know what, why not bring the French door over and put it here so that if you're sitting on the back patio, frankly, you have a clear shot to a bathroom. So that's the purpose of why we moved the French door from what we were initially requesting over. What we had intended to put there was a fountain. So now we're moving the fountain down on that blank wall, so it will be in the center from the porch going over. So I do want to also ask, if possible, we're going to change out the sconces that are back there. There are two by the French door leading out to the patio, and there's two by the double French doors on the addition that we did 5 years ago. We'd like to have them all match, and what we'd like to use is an oil-rubbed bronze 9-inch lantern, which I have a picture on my phone, and I'd be happy to send on. So in addition to the French door where there was no window and there was never an elevation presented for a certificate of appropriateness other than as a part of that back addition, we're adding a French door in that space. The rest of the windows, I brought you the original July 2021 window layout, the February 2022 window layout, and then as it is now, what you've all approved. So, and I redid that south elevation so that you can see it's just a contiguous porch line now instead of having that jut in. Originally, the jut-in was going to be 18 inches, 12 inches of overhang, and then 6 inches of gutter going all the way around.
Excuse me, I am so lost.
Are you,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I lost tracking some time back. If you have something on paper to add, that would be helpful.
okay, so if we start with the French door, we'd like to add a French door on the east elevation, which is just a solid brick wall.
It is, what you want to add is not replacing a window. There never was a
Correct.
window there.
Correct. When we originally requested this in June, we were going to put it on the south wall, which was a
That's
window.
Maybe, let's take a small piece at a time. Maybe I can put my arms
That's
around
fine.
it. So we have in the application two plans. One of them shows no window. Unfortunately, there's no north arrow. Well, there is a north arrow. It's on the east side of the addition. And on the other one, which is your modified floor plan, it shows a door on the east elevation. It's
Right.
that simple, right?
It's that simple.
Can we, and that's all we have in our application.
That's all you have, and what I've done with the roof line is we had just considered it a field modification because we were replacing a 12-inch overhang with a 6-inch gutter
Okay.
running all the way around there with a roof.
For me to make any judgment about that,
Okay.
I'm just one of seven, I'll need something on paper.
Okay, so, and Alfred, would you mind pulling that picture back up of the back porch?
I am, yeah, hold on 1 second, thank you.
It'll have to be for all of us, sadly. Yeah.
I have 5 copies.
Oh, wow, okay.
So this is,
So would you, ma'am, would you go back to your microphone, because otherwise you're not on the record? And I want to ask you, the document that you've handed to Mr. Herring and the other documents you're going to show us, are those not from your application? They're new documents?
this is from the old, these are what you already approved, and then I'm
I
giving him
wanna
a
ask
new
you-
document.
To identify if what you are showing us is not part of this application?
Correct,
They're not?
correct.
You're presenting them to us for the first time?
Yes, sir.
We haven't had an opportunity to review them. If this is what you now want us to approve, then I think you have to amend your application and come back another day. We spend a week going over the materials that are submitted to us before a hearing, and now you want us to go over these materials because you present them to us at the very day of the hearing. We haven't had time to do that.
Okay.
So if you
I understand.
want us to approve what you applied for, which I take it you don't.
Yes, I do. I would like you to approve what I applied for.
All right,
And I'm bringing to your attention that I did raise the roof in my application
wait a minute.
as a modification.
Now, in your application as submitted to us, referred to a door being installed in the east elevation.
What are the exhibits? Number.
It's Exhibit A-2.5,
That's what it's going to look like,
correct?
correct?
That's what you are now asking us to approve.
Yes,
And A 2.4 is what it currently looks like.
yes,
think-
that is with the door.
And A 2.1, I think, actually states what we're being asked to propose much better than the summary. This talks about addition of French door to the east wall. Doesn't talk about replacing a window because there isn't one there to replace.
That's correct. And you'll see there with the HVAC ductwork, we were running that down through the new hall addition, and it was not giving us enough space, and so we just extended the roof over that small gap that was between the porch and the addition.
I understand that you made a change to the roof, but we haven't looked at it, we haven't seen it.
We have no drawings to support what you're saying you did. or didn't do.
It would be better if you wrap all this up, come back next
Can we
month.
do the French door and at least get that approved, and then I'll come back and do the roof? But again, it's an area that's 5 foot by 4 foot, and it was already going to have a 1.5 foot overhang with gutter in that area. So all we did was fill in this little 5 by 4 area.
Sounds like it'd be
with roof.
easy to draw for next month.
I have it here.
Like that.
And I just handed you a drawing that includes the extended roof of the porch.
Sadly, we haven't had a chance to review it, but we can do it next month. So we'll do the French door tonight. I'm only
That'd be
one.
great.
Just one.
Can I get a
If
sconce
all we're
beside
going to
the
talk
French
about
door?
is the French door tonight, I'm comfortable with that. I think there's sufficient material here in the package to consider that, let's say that part. But if we're doing anything else, I don't see enough in here to really support what I think, John, you appropriately pointed out, the other things that are talked about in 2.1. That's my concern.
Yes. I think I would be comfortable approving the installation of the door because we have everything we need, including the two elevations.
Right.
I think we could ignore the fact that what is stated at the cover sheet is not quite accurate because we have something that's very specific about what we would be approving. But in terms of changing the roof line and what have you, that we don't have, in my opinion, what we need.
For approving the installation of a door, period.
May I get the sconce also beside it?
I'm sorry?
May I get the sconce beside it as well?
Is that shown in here?
It is not.
I think we said that sconces are minor work or maintenance. I'm not even sure we need to approve that. So I
Thank you.
think you get to do the sconces anyway.
Thank you.
All right, so limiting now our discussion to the installation of the French door, do we have any further questions for the applicant?
I have just one. The elevation that shows the French door that you're adding
Yes,
shows no trim or casing, no brick mold, nothing.
there is brick mold.
So
There is brick mold.
can you say that the trim around the door will match the existing
Absolutely.
trim?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, hearing none. As I said earlier, if there's any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. Seeing none, that concludes the evidentiary portion of this case. Unless any member of the commission wishes to ask anybody any further questions. Hearing none, we can now have either further discussion or a motion.
I would be happy to make a motion if the commission can clarify for me whether the mere installation of the door is in fact consistent with our guidelines. I think it is. Okay. I will take a stab at a motion here. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2022-00132, as further clarified in Exhibit A-2.1 of that application, and find the proposed major work at 15 Beulah Hill Road North is consistent with Historic District standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. I would list only for clarification that this approval is specific only to the French door and nothing else.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Richard?
Aye.
Tom? Eric, aye. Kara?
Aye.
John, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. You have,
Can I ask a question?
may I ask a
Thank
question?
you.
We won't guarantee an answer, but
It's
we'll-
fine, it's fine. But having extended that roof, since there was already something there, other than that little gap, I mean, is that seriously a major modification or is it a minor modification?
You need to confer with staff about that. We're not in the business of answering questions.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right, and that brings us to next case involving 80 Carolina Vista, COA 2022-00119. Is the applicant present? Gentlemen, will you each identify yourselves and spell your last name for the record?
Calvin Berkeley, Burkley.
Thank you.
Adam Cochran, Cochran.
And
Harry Harrison, Harrison.
thank you. And will you all raise your right hands, and do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please come forward and fight over the third chair, or however you want to do it.
I just remind you, as each of you speak, you need to speak into the microphone, so you may have to share one of the microphones because that's part of our record. Thank you.
And Alfred, would you present the case, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the HPC committee.
Solve that problem.
The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District to construct 96 paid parking spaces, construct a retaining wall, and landscaping. The property is identified as Moore County, parcel ID number as 000258808. The property owner is the Resorts of Pinehurst, LLC, and the applicant is Calvin Berkeley. The applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness to construct 96 paid parking spaces in the rear, construct a retaining wall, and install landscaping. The existing structure hotel was built between 1899 and 1900. The spa was constructed in 2002. The parcel is the home of Carolina Hotel and Spa, which the calculated acreage is approximately 22.76 acres in size. The major work will consist of minor work items not approved by the village planner, which is the brick wall. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance. This is an area view of the parcel. If you look at the aerial map, the parcel is surrounded by residential properties. If you look at the picture aerial map parking lot location, the parking lot would be in the rear along Barrett Street. As I stated previously, the total acreage of the parcel is 22.76 acres. The total land disturbed would be 0.99 acres in its own hotel, and the proposed impervious area would be 0.70 acres. If you look at the, according to the site plan of the parking lot, there's a total of 96 parking stalls, which includes 4 accessible handicap parking stalls. Out of the 4 handicap parking stalls, 2 will be van accessible. This is the conceptual wall plan submitted by the applicant. And if you look at the conceptual wall finish plans, detailed wall elevation outlines the materials of the proposed retaining wall, which consists of brick veneer, brick columns, and brick panels. According to the wall elevation, each brick column is 20 feet from each other. And this is an aerial rendering of the proposed parking site, which includes the retaining wall and the perimeter and exterior landscaping from an aerial view standpoint. And this is a close-up view of the rendering of the retaining wall from a walkability standpoint. If you look at the rendering, the proposed parking lot is heavily vegetated with an assortment of trees and shrubs. And this is the planting plan which displays the perimeter and interior planting of the proposed parking lot. So if you look at this planting plan, it's a more of a tense use regarding the proposed landscaping and that the applicant wants to install. These are two landscape tables that list the trees that will be removed and proposed trees and shrubs that the applicant wants to install. Each tree is listed that the applicant wants to remove are 12 inches in diameter. The first table to the left displays the trees which will be removed. The table to the right are trees and shrubs the applicant wants to install. The applicant plans to install azaleas, camellias, longleaf pines, crepe myrtle, dogwoods, and red pond cypress. According to the applicable standards, I'm just only going to highlight just a few of the standards. Section 7A.7, brick and stacked stone walls are permitted. Section 7A.11.B, the brick and stacked stone walls on the street side of the property must not be taller than 2.5 feet in height. Driveways and off-street parking, section 7B.3. Existing mature trees on the property should be incorporated into new street front parking areas wherever possible, and new trees introduced to reestablish the tree canopy over time. Landscaping and vegetation, section 7C.1. Additions and alterations to the existing landscape, including plant materials, hardscape, and accessory structure, must be compatible with the architectural character of the primary structure and congruous within the Pinehurst Historic District. Section 7C.2.8. Specific landscape features that are character-defining elements of the Pinehurst Historic District, including large trees, hedge, foundation planting, grassy lawn, ground cover, patio, terraces, fountains, and gardens should be retained and preserved as much as possible. Section 7C.3. Existing large trees and other significant landscape elements should be incorporated into plans for additions and new constructions. Section 7C.4. Removal of trees 12 inches diameter at breast height and larger must unreasonably compromise the existing tree canopy and the historic appearance of the landscape. The applicant has submitted an application to provide additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The request is consistent with the Village of Pinehurst Development Ordinance parking and landscaping requirements. The proposed parking area is consistent with the parking standards and could be approved as minor work. However, the proposed brick wall as depicted to screen adjacent right-of-way and neighboring properties does not meet the maximum 2.5 feet height standards. The requested brick wall height would need to be determined to be compatible and contiguous with the district. For the tree removal, the commission would need to determine if the existing tree canopy will be unreasonably compromised. The applicant has provided a list of those to be removed along with a schedule of trees and shrubs to be installed to meet the landscaping requirements of the Pinehurst Development Ordinance. At this time, staff would like to submit the following to record: staff report with attachments and exhibits, the presentation, application and applicant's material and exhibits, and this concludes staff's report.
Without objection, the materials referred to by staff are admitted into the record. Alfred, I noticed that in discussing the parking spaces being established here, I don't believe we have any very specific standards that apply to what's being done here. We're not putting public parking in a front yard or anything like that. But we do have, do we not, our general congruity standard, and that's what we have to apply in this case. Is that your view?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Alfred, you make several references to standards for height. I couldn't find anywhere the actual proposed height of the wall. Do you have that? If not, we'll ask.
It's in the packet, I believe it's 4.9. Am I correct, Mr. Berkeley?
Total's 8.9.
Yeah, it should be in there.
Maybe it was there and I just couldn't read it.
Page 3 at the top.
4.9 feet.
Correct.
That's from the low point,
Yes.
from the low side. Right? From the low side?
Let's not ask the applicants.
Sorry.
Yet, confuse the record.
4.9 is from the low side?
Correct.
Any other questions for Alfred? Yes.
One question. Do we have any drawing that shows the location and sizes of the trees being removed?
Yes, hold on. It's in my presentation. Let me go back.
You mean those tables?
Yes, sir.
No, I'm talking about a location, a plan, showing the location of the trees and their sizes to be removed,
Like a tree survey.
like a tree survey. Or
I don't have that in the presentation or anything like that, but the applicant can kind of explain that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll turn to the applicants. Gentlemen, what would you like to add in support of your application?
Well, first of all, thanks for having us. The reason that we're looking at installing these parking is part of the good faith effort of the resort to add additional parking. And I'm going to turn the rest of us over. We do have some answers to the questions on where the trees are being removed. So turn it over to Adam.
Alfred, can you bring up that presentation?
I will. Give me 1 second, please. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we've got some slides to hopefully provide a little bit more commentary on the application as well, and answer the height question and the tree removal.
Chair, are we going to include these slides into to the record or not? Is my question.
Well, let's see what they are.
Okay.
Now, for clarification of the record, what you're showing us are new documents that were not included in the original application, but illustrate the same project. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
We did provide staff the full set of construction drawings, though, too, on this.
While we're looking, I have a couple other separate questions. One of them, I gather, is just a matter of rendering glitches, shall we say. The parking lot doesn't match the plan insofar as the parking in the center. There is, I presume, a mulch bed. The plan suggests there is. The rendering doesn't show it.
That's accurate. There is a mulch bed in the center. Yeah, this first slide simply helps orient everybody with north to the right. It's just generally how the plans are created for this particular project. With the spa to the south. The spa is to the south, to the left. With the site is currently part of the stormwater system for the overall parcel. And it is a lower depression currently that we're going to be filling in to create parking lot. As seen from Barrett Road today, you'll notice that it is heavily vegetated. As you look across the sidewalk into the site, you can see the existing grass through the trees in the background. Much of that existing vegetation will remain as even a part of this project. Another image looking in to the site from Barrett Road. This is the same site plan that has been submitted. What you've asked for down the middle, that blank strip, is the landscape bed that does not show up in the aerial rendering. You're correct, but it is part of the project. Overall, the project has two vehicular entrances, one from the south near the spa, and the other to the north near the loading dock to the near the steam plant. And due to the rise in grade from the south to the north, that's what's triggering the retaining wall fronting Barrett Road. So the X's you see here is our landscape demolition plan. This adds up to, if you were to count these X's, this is more than 23, because what was listed in the table are 12-inch caliper and more and higher trees. This is every tree that will be removed as a part of the project. The key point is they're predominantly interior to the site. We're doing everything we can to preserve as much as possible along Barrett Road. This is the landscape plan, the same that you saw a minute ago, where we'll be infilling with heavily landscaped between Barrett Road and the proposed parking lot. This is the same image on the left and the lower left that was in your packet. The image on the right is a general image of a pierced brick parapet wall on top of a retaining wall. To clarify the height question, the total retained height for this project is 4 foot 9 inches. On top of that 4 foot 9 inches is a 4 foot tall parapet that's the brick pierced wall in an effort to screen the vehicles and screen the headlights. So the total wall height, if you were standing on the low side on grade, it would be just under 9 feet. These are images of brick around the rear patio to the convention center, and we're intending to match the same brick color and pattern of these walls you see here, not the fountain, but the walls with the running bond, same brick color and pattern. We do have a few interior parking lot lights. The image on the right shows the pole. The difference of what we're installing here on this parking lot versus the image on the right is that we will not have a glass globe. It will be the, well, it's not circled, the red box fixture where it's the LED fixture without the glass globe.
Yeah, and we wanted to do that because it tends to be less glaring perceptually. I'm sorry. Not having the globe from a perception standpoint from people who are, along Barrett Road, the light wouldn't appear as glaring. It wouldn't be as noticeable that way. And that's one reason why we didn't want to use the globe. We used a similar thing at the Beach Club to try to reduce perceived glare from adjacent properties.
Just one question, these lights will be on all night long?
No, Duke did an initial lighting layout for us, but we would be installing lights so that we could control them and not have them on all night.
When would they go out?
I don't have a time we've picked yet, but we would, it would probably be between like 11 and 12 timeframe.
And this is the same rendering that was in your packet where the intent was to illustrate the wall and the plantings. Now, I think what's a little unrealistic is we did not model every tree and all the underbrush and understory materials that is probably even more dense between Barrett Road and the wall. But this gives you a sense of the scale and color of the wall as seen from Barrett Road. And this is the aerial that you were describing earlier that does not show the full landscape bed down the center island. That is correct. That is the end of our additional commentary.
Although these materials we've just been discussing in some cases were not part of our original application package, the chair rules that they're admissible as aids for the witnesses to explain their testimony in response to questions from the commissioners. So they will be made part of the record.
Shouldn't we add this as a specific exhibit?
Well, we can do that.
However, it's numbered.
X. Fine.
Okay, they are admitted as Exhibit X. Other questions for the applicants? Yes.
Understanding, oh, sorry, David, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Understand, you can't predict the height of all vehicles, and we've seen some, like, Super Duty trucks that can be pretty high. Would it be your expectation that this wall, the solid part of the wall, would block out all headlights? Or certainly the vast majority, let's put it that way?
Vast majority. I mean, we took a tape measure and checked out a F-250 and a Silverado 2500. So, yeah, and in addition to that, consider that the parking lot is elevated compared to the street, so that you're looking up through it, which effectively covers up even a little bit more of a potential headlight.
Who is the parking intended for? Who will be the primary people going in there?
Honestly, it depends on the time of the year, and it could be staff, it could be resort guests, and at times of need, it could be for public as overflow for village use.
People who drive vehicles.
I mean, not that this is necessarily 100% germane. We had an application before us for a house across Ritter Road from one of the parking lots on, I believe, the south side, the southwest side. And there's no, if there's a retaining wall, it is much lower than what you're proposing. And those lights were a particular vexation to them. Every time someone comes into as they're exiting from the hotel, whether they're going to parking or leaving it, the lights shine in their house, and that's not conducive to ambiance, shall we say. And the pictures that we have do not show the lamps, but those lamps are 10 or 12 feet high.
They're 12-foot poles.
Same as the ones in the village right now, basically.
They match the ones that were recently put in at the Manor Inn and at the Pinehurst Brewing Company.
The only difference would be they don't have the glass in them, so that, my understanding is if the light comes down, hits a glass, it diffuses and goes out. And if we don't put the glass in, then it just comes down.
Yeah, you get a pool light on the ground. The LED fixtures are in the cap.
Right.
So they're shining down, and the spread covers that, the refraction.
And these were dark skylights, right?
Yes, they're dark sky.
Are they directed away from Barrett Road?
Well, they're actually located in the center of the parking lot, along that center island. So they're illuminating from the middle, so they're not really on the edge. We also have submitted as part of the site plan an illumination photometric plan from Duke to show that it's 0 foot candles at the property line.
It said 0.
By code, by the ordinance, it needs to be 0 foot candles at the property line. And so
Thank you.
that's what they designed to.
I have a question about the wall. So I understand now that the retaining wall is functional more than aesthetic. Is there a reason you didn't continue it on the north side? Is that just because there's so much vegetation that does the blocking? Does that make sense?
It wasn't, one, it wasn't necessary structurally because we could be at grade. And then 2, there is a Duke power line easement along that edge that we are partially underneath for that part of the parking, so we couldn't really build a permanent structure in that easement.
Okay. And you don't think the headlights will be a problem on that side? Because there's parking on that side too, right?
There's parking on that side, but between parking and the street, there's much more vegetation that is dense.
It did look like in the trees that you were going to take down, it looked like you were taking a few down from that corner.
Yes.
You won't take enough down that it would be open and we'd see cars?
Well, it's the thinnest where the easement is, but it was the thinnest where the easement is. Currently, that's where you can see into the property right now. And we're able to put back some. We were able to meet with Duke, a representative from Duke Energy on site, to discuss what we could put in the easement. And so we're trying to put in some evergreen shrubs that can mature to a decent height to help. We can't really get into canopy. We do have something at the edge of crepe myrtle at the very edge, but that's sort of just because it's at the edge. But otherwise, we're trying to fill in with pine trees and some of the required evergreen shrubs for the buffering.
Would you go to the exhibit that shows the tree survey? The existing trees? I think it's one before this or two before this. If you were to, could you tell me of the trees with the X's, how many are in the footprint of the asphalt? Roughly speaking. But where I'm headed is, if this garage were moved, and I don't easily see a reason why it couldn't be, if it were moved to the west, say 15 feet, could we save all those trees?
I don't know the answer to that.
That would be critical to my judgment about whether there's a way to skin the cat without affecting the tree canopy, which certainly you are doing. Looking to the west side of the parking lot, I don't see any particular reason why you couldn't move the parking lot west, say 15 feet, 20 feet.
You all do have an underground stormwater system here, right? So that may.
Okay? That's a lot of trees. And it's right across the street from a bunch of houses.
I mean, this says approximate parking lot footprint, so could you just move it? Is that like the actual?
I want to clarify, when you say west, do you mean true west toward the convention center or plan west?
North.
Plan north, okay.
Up.
Which would be kind of in the direction of the convention center, yes.
Away from the trees.
Would they have to
More
take trees
importantly.
out here, though? Looks like there's also trees on this.
They'd be on the backside.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
Interior.
really,
So you're going to take trees one way
Yeah.
to the other, but at least they wouldn't be next to that street.
might be fewer in total.
I think there's, I don't have the plan in front of me, but as we look at, that steam plant has a loading dock and zone, a paved zone to its plan south. It's the east side of that plant.
Alfred, could you put up Exhibit S2, which I think is, and we can all look at sort of the same thing. So right where it says approximate parking lot footprint, right where the arrow is, if we were to move it left, if you will, 10 or 15 feet, what is that running into?
That's the loading apron you were talking about?
There's a loading apron, there's a water line.
Get larger, just a little larger, so we can see the whole. Yeah, there you go.
Right where the red arrow attached to approximate parking, if the whole rectangle were shifted left 10 or 15 feet, whatever it took to save as many of those trees on the east side by the Barrett Road boundary. Appreciating you may lose some on the west side between the parking lot and the convention center, which in my mind would be preferable to losing them on the Barrett Road side.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, just roughly looking at the concept, or that concept, that idea of shifting it, we'd be looking at losing at least 6 parking spaces as we move things to the west due to the existing pavement and utilities in the area.
You'd be losing, I'm sorry, 6 parking spaces?
At least. I mean, I'm mentally moving it, right? So it's at least 6 parking spaces lost.
Well,
Why? I'm not being argumentative, that's not clear to me.
It's just because of the existing pavement and loading dock operations around the.
So up in that upper left quadrant, you might lose a few parking spaces.
That's right, yeah, that's correct.
It's conceivable you could gain a couple by making it a tad longer on its planned northwest corner. Might pick up a 1 or 2, 3.
I'm also not sure if playing devil's advocate, 90 and 96 is not, I mean, 90 parking spaces is still kind of a lot. If we lost 6 to 10.
Still, in my mind, the more the better, but not at the expense of those valuable trees.
I don't think we're going to answer that question tonight with the documentation we've got. So we can sit here and stare at this map all night, but until somebody goes back and looks at this site and figures out where we're going with it, to answer that question, I don't think there's an answer we're coming up with tonight.
Well, one answer is a no vote.
Well, I'm not saying,
no,
specific to his question
right,
about moving it, I don't see we're going to see that.
Right.
Which could lead to a no vote. I'm not arguing that.
No, that's my only point, and therefore, it's putting the applicants into a difficult position because they're running the risk of either adhering to the existing plan, which is obviously the one they think is best for the resort, or considering something else, which they're not required to do, and running the risk one way or the other that they won't get approval. So it's I think, entirely legitimate, but I don't know that there's a solution to it.
So there would be 2 routes to giving you a shot at moving it. One of them is to reapply, or the other is to continue. Or you can roll the dice and we'll vote, which you may win.
I've got a few more well, one question if you don't, because it sounds like we're almost getting to the end. Not to jump in, David, but so this is what you see here, read it out for you. A31, the sort of money shot, I guess, is what we'll call it. So from the road, what you really see is 8 feet, 9 inches of brick. And what we've done is we've said 4 feet of it, 4'9" of it is retaining wall, and then 4 feet above that is the see-through brick.
That's correct.
Detail, okay. I don't know where the property line is. It's a lot of brick. I could imagine, it's out of my purview to say, have you had community meetings? There's hundreds of questions I have that don't come into play with our scope as far as historic preservation. But did you consider maybe if you have more property, they're just towing that slope and not having to even do a retaining wall, and then coming in with just for that top portion of that brick? If you've got the space, if you've got the property, there's a pretty generous buffer there between the sidewalk where you show all that landscaping and trees. It looks like you got a couple of feet where you can have a gentle, from the parking lot being flat, you can tow that slope and have less brick, have it be less obtrusive, less less of a 9-foot wall that people are seeing from the road. It shouldn't change anything because you're not changing the height or the blocking of cars, correct? Because that 4 feet is what's blocking the car. The rest is on grade as retaining.
The flip side is if we change the grade in there, we're losing the trees.
The trees aside, that's not, this is more of just instead of looking at 9 feet of brick, is there a way you can avoid doing the retaining wall, save some money, use some of that additional property, and we look at 4 feet less of, or 4'9" less of brick?
So instead of doing a retaining wall, you just do a wall that
And look,
blocks.
if you have the space, do you have to have the retaining wall, or do you have a couple of feet where you can toe that slope and gently grade it down?
The issue that we've got there is, one, the grade is falling away from the parking towards Barrett Road. And so it's working against us just adding grade at the top, because the more we add to that to try to build it up, the farther out it goes before we get back to grade. And then we're taking more of the existing vegetation that's there, and we didn't want to take any more than we needed to.
At a 3-to-1 slope, we got about 4 feet to pick up, that's 12 feet.
Well, and consider that you do need a bit of a level shelf for maintenance purposes, just to access the perimeter of the retaining wall, just so you can maintain it, and to try to stabilize the top of that slope. So that was one thing we were weighing, was that it just seemed like we were going to have to lose so much to try to grade it out.
But are you saying if they moved it west, they would have
No,
additional?
just this, it's really just a question to know if they considered it. It sounds like you all have, which is, it looks like you've got a lot of space between the sidewalk and that wall. And it looks like you could take, instead of having a retaining wall, you could take that slope and grade it, so it's almost like a gentle bank that could be landscaped. And it's from the road, you see 4'9" less of brick. You don't see 9 feet of brick, you see half of that wall, but the height, the top of that wall at 8'9" doesn't change. It's still the same height. But it sounds like you all have walked through that process. It was just a question, because I'd imagine a lot of people, community, I'd imagine a concern would be looking at 8'9" of brick. And if there was a way to soften that without affecting blocking lights, blocking cars, which we appreciate you trying to do, maybe that could be a way you could achieve it.
But you guys said there's lots of vegetation up there too, right? That's not in this.
Correct.
So that
Let's-
would block it.
That's right.
Be a little careful here too. I'm not saying anything that people are bringing up aren't good subjects or good things to look at and good questions to make. But we got to remain within the standards, and I don't know anything in the standards that address some of these areas that we're talking about right now. We don't get to vary outside those standards and make decisions that are made elsewhere, such in the planning department and some places like that can ask those questions. But
Well, I
we
think
don't
that-
have
I
the
think
jurisdiction unless it's in those standards. So if somebody can point some of this out to me, I'd appreciate it.
I think the issue Richard's raising is a counterpoint to the struggle to retain tree canopy, which is within our purview.
Correct.
So,
But so is wall height. So, yeah.
and wall height. So I think these are valid things for us to discuss within the scope of our purview.
The tree canopy, yes.
Yeah, so.
Okay, but I'm not sure that bleeds into the height of a wall.
I would add two things. One, we haven't asked to see if there's any public comment, and I suspect there might be, maybe not. Number two, I think parking has been an issue in Pinehurst for a long time. And my question would, and we're being asked to approve some things which are outside the standards, although there are exceptions for them.
Right.
But my question would be, would a 1-month delay so that they could consider whether moving it slightly, is that an unreasonable thing for us to ask without opining on whether we would or would not approve?
Right.
I agree, and I'm not arguing that point, but we just need to be careful to stay within those standards and not get too far out of those standards, because we leave the standards, we have no jurisdiction. That's what it boils down to in reality. Now, the canopy thing, I agree, but that's trees. It's unfortunately not walls and other things.
The thing is that what is concerning about the wall height, in order to soften that grade, wipes out more trees. So they're directly related. Similarly, the perforated brick wall isn't the best way to screen headlights. Solid brick wall is, which is counter to the desire to reduce the amount of brick you see. I mean, I see the struggle you guys went through. I'm not sure we're there yet, looking at the number of trees that are right along that edge that got wiped out. That's why.
If I could add one comment to the wall height issue, is we intentionally stayed out of the setbacks so that we were not closer to the road than a building would be if it were, than a regular structure would be. And just, we were conscious of that in terms of when we were looking at the height of the wall.
Do commissioners have any further questions of the applicant witnesses, or shall we ask for?
I have, no, I don't, it was answered. Never mind, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Any other commissioner questions? If not, as I said earlier, if there's any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. I see two people. Why don't you guys go sit in the front row and let them have your seats? Would you each please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Christopher O'Connor, Oconnor.
O'Connor, ma'am?
April O'Connor, same spelling.
Okay, and please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Both answer affirmatively. Please be seated.
Come up here and sit down. In front of the microphones, you got to remain there for the record, so please.
All right, will you please tell us your address and identify whatever interest, if any, you have in this application?
First, we'd like to thank you all for having this meeting today to hear some concerns by the residents. And there's a few of us that are right on that road. We are at the exit point of the spas. So our address is 185 Barrett Road East. We are the house that this parking lot would empty into. Every single car, every single light. So there's some concerns. I mean, obviously, I think there's some concerns for you all. And I mean, first and foremost, the village. I mean, what does it do to the village? I mean, that's certainly something you're very aware of and concerned with. One of the big concerns we have is obviously there's an enormous safety issue there. As their own pictures show, right there, people walking. They walk across that exit point. That doesn't happen at the front of the villa, at the front of the hotel. That happens in our front yard. That is a constant place where people walk. They walk their dogs. So from that standpoint, it isn't, I mean, I can't emphasize enough how much that is just a danger point. It's not used that way now. It's, we lived there. We've lived there for coming up on 4 years, so we can tell you a lot of foot traffic, but not any car traffic, hardly at all coming out of the back of that spa. And to have every single car coming out of there, certainly for us, is scary. It's a very quiet road right now, as you all are very aware, and that's one of the reasons we bought it, because it's a wonderful place to be. We love living in the village. Was my wife's requirement.
It was a twofold thing there with the traffic in and out constantly. One is the safety issue, because there's a lot of pedestrian bikes and stuff. The other is just the quaintness of the village. You know, as you're walking down from the village towards, to our area, it's just so quaint and peaceful. And Carolina Vista is made to get from the spa the hotel to the club. And that's a very busy, area with cars and such like that. But our road is people are walking out of the village. And so it just kind of messes with the quaintness that the village is all about.
And again, I mean, I'm just looking at their own picture, which absolutely brings my point to a head. I mean, they put that up there. Those people will walk across that road. And right now, the current Carolina Vista, people don't walk across the entrance, they just don't. The other big issue is the drainage issue. I mean, I'm guessing that has been there for all these years to retain their drainage, and they're talking about building, I guess, some kind of, I'm going to call it a cistern, even though that's not the correct, some kind of underground drainage, but I don't know how that little area is going to hold 27 acres of drainage, because that's what it is now. It's just, it's,
We are lower than them, so we're afraid that the water will
well,
come into ours.
I mean, there is a requirement in anytime you do something, we're in the village, we know, anytime you, that's why it's that way, only so much buildable area, and we're adding parking lot. We're adding impermeable surface. I mean, when we want to add on to our house, the very first thing everybody talks about is impermeable surface. So the biggest concern we have is that with the safety, and then certainly the drainage is, I mean, we see it because, like I said, it's something, currently right now, when cars go in, there's very few. I mean, a day, it might be, I don't want to, they may have the numbers, I don't know, but it's just deliveries to the spa and maybe a couple of employees bringing things in. We're talking arguably a couple hundred ingresses and egress every day as a minimum. As a minimum, every single one of those cars points their lights at our house. Now, we talked earlier about the lighting in the parking lot. We walk all the time. We never see the lights off in the parking lot. And I don't even think that's a good idea to have a dark parking lot. Certainly, I mean, that raises a big concern. So we're going to turn the lights off so that when people go out there, I mean, there's still a safety issue there for people.
The other option is we're going to have lights in our house all the time.
I mean,
So there's
constant.
parking lots with the headlights.
It never stops. I mean, that's not that's, again, that's not, I don't think, the danger thing to me is the biggest thing. That's just huge. I mean, that is an absolute one of the walking trails. They even have it there with that's where people walk. And now we're going across that in and out of our home. I mean, our mailbox is in that front, is 20 feet from that exit. So.
Is there a solution in your minds to the issues that you've raised?
Well, certainly.
Other than to deny this application?
Well, I don't want to deny, and we don't want to deny anybody. We don't want to deny growth, but we also want to bring where we're at, what we're doing here, what we're all here about. We all have the same thing that we care about, which is the village.
Right.
We care about the village, and a parking lot is a parking lot. I mean, on their plan, Barrett Road parking lot,
That's what they called it. That was scary.
you know, and then people walking.
To answer your question, to address it maybe, there's another road that's kind of a back road through there. As you go just a little bit past our house, it's like your first left. And
Where
that
they-
also goes into the back of
The
the
current,
hotel.
the current employee. So if they block it off,
I don't know, somehow if they could make that the main entrance and exit, or another option is, bus the people, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, what were you saying?
they bus people for everything. I mean, they bus them to the village so people can get wings. I mean, that's a reality. So we can't have a parking situation somewhere else where they have a parking at the main over there by the, by the clubhouse or whatever. I don't know. I mean, all I'm saying is, this is the village. This is just that place that everybody goes to. I mean, Mr. Taylor and his wife, they used to live there. They moved to CCNC. They came back because it's the village. It's just a very special place. And now we're opening another parking lot. I mean, no drainage, danger, We talk about these trees. We talk about that. I mean, we had a tree in our front yard that had a problem, and the arborist recommended taking it down. We fought him on it. We're like, no. As long as it's not danger to where it'll fall, let's leave it up. That's the tree that's at the exit. It's a cedar tree. It's beautiful. And it's got little, sawdust type things. So we're into that. We love what you guys are doing, that you're protecting this place that we have. The value of our village, the tranquility. I mean, there's something to that too, Go ahead, babe.
Thank you for your testimony. Let's see if any members of the commission have questions for you.
I have none.
I have one. If your main concern is the walkability and the danger, if there was a way to reroute the entrance back to the employee parking, would that alleviate most of it, or is it also the headlights?
But let's be very clear. First and foremost, I don't think that location is anything that should be considered a parking lot. That being said, and I think you all probably feel the same way, but we have our hands tied and we understand that. But certainly, having hundreds of cars come across one of the walkways, it's on the trail maps. It's on the way, hey, take this walk, it could be a mile, it could be a half mile, whatever it may be. And so, to answer your question, if it has to be there, which I'm hoping and praying that we all don't think well, there may be another way, but if it has to be there, certainly having that come right out of there that can't happen.
That is my biggest concern is the traffic in and out of there. But if we could go to I should know that back road name there. I don't remember.
It's right across, well, it exits out by
McLean Road.
by the church. And there's that beautiful greenhouse there
Yes.
where currently right now where all of the cars come in and out, they go into the employee parking. That's certainly better than what we're talking, because when people come out of there, they don't point their cars into somebody's house, they point it down a road.
And the drainage was the only other thing that we were
That's a
considering there.
massive, yeah.
So as long as, we can make sure that we're not taking on all the drainage from, the hotel.
What other, I guess I'm
Because that
saying,
is the storm drainage area right now, right?
that's where they retain all their water. You go there anytime, that's where it's at. They don't have any other permeable space. They have buildings and they have parking lots. The only permeable space they have is that one area, so let's fill that in too.
So, as Chair said, we appreciate it. A lot of what you said is out of our purview. So.
Safety.
We're Historic Preservation Commission. So there may be valid concerns, there may not be valid concerns, but for our hearing and what we're dealing with,
I understood.
Much of it is
that's what
outside
this
of our
was for.
purview, unfortunately,
Yeah.
from your perspective, it's the case. There may be other places where it's better brought up, maybe in the planning meeting or something else. They look at safety, they look at drainage, they look at all of those things. We have no jurisdiction over anything to do with drainage or any of those kinds of things, too.
Well, we just wanted to bring out.
So I'm not disagreeing with you at all, and I think personally, between you, me, and this bottle of water, you have some valid points, but there's nothing we can do about most of what you brought up is the issue, because
I misunderstood. I thought that's what this was for. Okay.
people do, and I'm not trying to
Right.
say anything negative, but our thing here, the only jurisdiction we have by statute is the historical perspective of this project.
And do we feel like as a committee that this is taking away green space and adding parking lots? Don't we feel that's something that is in your purview?
Talked about those issues with the trees and stuff, and asked about the movement and.
Well, not only the trees, the current ground cover. Anyway, thank you for hearing us.
Okay.
Certainly,
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. I think there's another member of the public who wishes to be heard. Will you come forward, sir? Would you state your name and please spell your last name for the record?
Kiefer Welch, W-E-L-C-H.
Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Would you please be seated? Would you please tell us your address?
45 McLean Road. It's the corner of Barrett and McLean.
And what do you have to say to us about this application?
I have essentially three concerns. The first is, how will this parking lot affect the ingress and egress off of the current employee entrance on McLean? And two is, my concern is the light pollution from the 12-foot lights that are going to go in there. Are these lights meant to puddle, or are they meant to illuminate the entire parking lot? So we've had, because of the position of our house, we've had some serious light pollution issues that Scott Bruner was nice enough to accommodate in the redirection of the lights in the parking, the employee parking lot. I appreciate the planners and what they've done as far as this rendition of the appearance. That looks great. But how will that affect the traffic in and out of the current entrance to the employee parking lot and to the loading dock?
We're not here to answer questions. We're here to listen to testimony, and
Okay.
we don't have the authority, again, to answer questions of those types. They may be valid questions, but
So who do we go to before this thing becomes?
The applicants may have
literally
some responses.
the applicants may have some responses, but we don't get to give responses to questions.
Okay.
The applicants may choose or choose not to. It's up to them on whether they want to answer your question or not, but that's not something.
Okay. Well, light pollution, I would think would have some, you'd have some jurisdiction over that.
Might, but again, we don't answer the questions.
Okay. Well, then
We're
never-
here to listen to what's presented to us and make a decision. We don't
Okay,
answer,
well
we
then,
don't answer
then,
questions.
never mind. Thank you for your time.
Well, let's find out if the applicants want to respond to any of the issues that
They
Mr.
definitely have
Welch has. You don't have to. If you want to, you may do so.
And it would be of both comments, right?
Yep.
Either or.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Ma'am, sorry. Please come forward. And is there anybody else here who's planning to testify on this case? Okay. Ma'am, would you state your name, please?
Debbie Laylor, Lailor.
Okay. And would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
Please be seated. And would you tell us what your address is?
Live at 80 Azalea Road.
Okay? And what do you have to say about this application?
A lot. Several things came up during the course of the conversation, so I've made notes. And I lived through the reconstruction of the parking lot at the Carolina and the planting and installation of the vegetative landscaping buffer there. And I looked at this brick wall, and I was curious because you could see, and I had just watched the council meeting from Tuesday night where questions were raised about the height of vehicles and how visible they were going to be from the clubhouse. And I wondered about the vehicles here because you can see the top of the vehicles in the rendering, and it's a little unclear where the elevations are from the parking lot itself to the top of the wall. So I went up to the Carolina, and to answer the question that came up before, a Tahoe SUV, and these are estimates because I didn't want to touch the car and risk setting off the burglar alarm. A Tahoe SUV, I believe, is about 73 inches tall. Its lights are 46 inches off the ground. A mid-sized small sedan, by comparison, their lights are only 33 inches off the ground. So it makes a difference about what's going to shine through onto the neighbors through the pierced brick wall. So I just thought, oh, and a pickup truck is 71 inches tall, not as tall as a Tahoe. Because I agree with the comments heard before about the light pollution. I disagree with the comments about the brick wall. I think this is the kind of wall that should have been built along Ritter Road with landscape buffering on the outside of it, because one of the big deficiencies in the regulations is a sense of time in terms of these landscape buffers. And you can't plant a bush 12 inches high and pretend that it's going to look like this drawing. The planting along Barrett Road sidewalk is at least 50% deciduous. So to show pictures of summertime foliage and say this is going to look great year-round, that's just not so. It's what happened when they built the Greens apartment. You know, you go in the summertime and, oh my God, you're not going to see a thing. It's not so. Plants grow slowly, other bushes and trees are deciduous, vegetation changes over time. I think it's great that the resort installed the parking lot all the way back to the building setback line for, that's really, I wondered where all this space was coming from, so that's good. Anyway, okay, so sorry, rambling. I know this isn't your purview, but I'm going to raise it anyway. There's no discussion about who's going to use this lot. If it's for people coming for special events, nighttime events, military balls, festival of lights, how are they going to access the back of the hotel? There's been comments made by resort employees that they'll be putting in a new back door. That surely would come to this commission for their approval. Should you be considering this parking lot alone, or should you be considering it as part of a larger plan that the resort might have to facilitate access to the back of the hotel? Because otherwise, people are not going to use it for those events. If it's for club members who don't have enough space at the club to park, there will be van access. Vans, in addition to the cars, there will be vans coming to pick people up and shuttle them back and forth. I think this plan as presented is incomplete, both as to its effect on access to the hotel itself, as well as traffic that's going to be coming in and out of the lot. I think these are all relevant questions in terms of getting complete plans presented to you, because if you look at the lot out by the Fair Barns, it is a stranded field of asphalt right now, because I don't know what the problem is, but their application, the resort's application to the Corps of Engineers for a new road is still being processed. So who knows how long that's going to take. And so if they go ahead and build this, who knows who's going to use it, how they're going to access it, and whether it's just going to be another field of asphalt. And I will, on the subject of impermeability, the resort has great fortune because it can look at its entire acreage, which includes many golf courses, and it doesn't have to consider this site of the Carolina Hotel in and of itself in terms of impermeable surfaces. I think the question about drainage was really relevant. I think this is a special case that they should not be able to turn to course number 5 and say, well, look, we got 50 acres out here. That's part of our permeable surface. It's a problem up here with this. And the last thing is that I want you to be mindful of the fact that with this parking lot, and I'm not against it, I'm not sure actually where I stand, but with this parking lot, the resort will now have paved parking lots on 3 of the major entryways into Pinehurst, into Old Town Pinehurst. They've got the new lot under the trees with no landscape buffering. It's temporary, but it's temporary until May 2023. It's going to be at least a year for that parking lot to go away. There's the parking lot along the length of Ritter Road from the valet and east parking lots where the vegetative buffer in our lifetime will not block those cars. They should have had a brick wall like this. And now you'd have this on Barrett Road. So that's Barrett, Ritter, and Midland Azalea. 3 entryways into Old Town Pinehurst are now going to have highly visible parking lots. And I think that is within your purview to consider. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have questions for this witness? Hearing none, thank you, ma'am, for your testimony. I don't believe there's anybody else here who is prepared to testify. To the representatives of the applicant, you are not required to respond to any of the citizen testimony that you've heard. In fact, I don't think you actually have the right to, but we will give you the right to if you wish to. Otherwise, we will conclude the evidentiary portion of this case. Up to you. Gentlemen, please proceed.
If I could just address the light pollution issue that was mentioned previously. As I stated before.
Please pull that mic a little closer to you. You don't have a very loud voice, and what
I'm
you're
sorry.
saying, I assume, is important.
The lighting plan that we had done meets the village requirements. The parking lot's lit from the center, and there's a minimum, the village standard is a pretty low light level requirement for maximum average foot candles, and it's a 0-foot candle requirement at the property line, which the plan meets. And we're using dark sky fixtures so that we aren't contributing more to light pollution within, the general atmosphere of the village. I'm not sure how else to address that other, the parking lot only has 3 fixtures. For the whole thing, it's only going to need 3 fixtures. So I think we've minimized the contributing light pollution.
I'm not sure that I understand what that standard means. Are you saying that if I stood at the edge of the parking lot, the proposed edge of the parking lot, there will be no difference in the amount of light that I would sense whether those lights are on or not? Is that what 0-foot candle means?
Yeah, the surface that at the surface of the property, at the property line, those new poles are not contributing additional light to that spot.
At the edge of the property line.
Is that true 6 feet off the ground where my eye level would be walking around, or?
Well, I mean, you would perceive you could see the light pole.
Right.
But it's not contributing light to the surface to illuminate the surface.
Thank you.
Anything else?
How about height of line, the stormwater retention?
So regarding the height of the wall, she brings up a great point, and just the variability of vehicles. And a couple of things to point out. Number one, to clarify, so that you understand, the driving surface is 4 feet below the top of the wall. So the intent is that the top of the wall is 4 feet above where a car would be. And in an effort to minimize and hide as many headlights as possible. In addition to that, Barrett Road is slightly lower in elevation, so as you look up to the parking lot, because it is raised a few feet, at 4'9" at its max, you're looking up, and it's going to continue to obscure the top of those vehicles.
But the houses, do you know how high they sit? So less about the people looking and getting blinded by headlights, but do the houses sit that high so the headlights would come right into their windows?
That I don't know.
And Alfred, could you put up Exhibit A 2.2, please? Yes. And if you could make it a little larger, I'd like to look in particular down at that lower right-hand diagram. Is that showing that the parking lot is on the left? Oops,
Yes.
I lost it.
Yes, sir, that's correct. The car would be on the left side of that image.
And
Yes,
the
sir.
perforated part of the wall, so the headlights would be shining right through that perforated part of the wall for virtually every vehicle. The 4-foot part of the wall is on the outside, not where the vehicles park.
That's correct.
So that wall is going to block something, but virtually every vehicle, their lights are going to shine through that wall.
The portion of the vehicles that park along that wall, yes.
Right, and that's I think 3'6", it says, is the height of that from parking lot grade.
4 feet, because just due to the stone mulch
Right.
area.
Okay,
That's right.
Thank you.
Is there any way to put some kind of barrier behind the pierced brick so that no headlights would go through it? You wouldn't see it from the road, but
I'm going to bring back my point again here. Light pollution is not part of the historical structures. We have nothing. We're wandering into territory that is not within our jurisdiction.
Well, that's an issue that can be raised during the deliberations of
Yep.
a motion, but I think the members of the commission have the right to ask whatever
And
questions
ask the right
they.
question. I'm just mentioning that that's the case.
can it be a pretty barrier?
Well, we don't have to have piercings in the wall. We could actually have articulation in the wall so that there's relief and pattern to the wall, but still have a solid wall.
But then to your point, it would be all brick and no pierced brick.
Then it would be a solid brick wall. So there's an aesthetic choice.
I should have pointed out the walls. The point I was making earlier is instead of seeing 8 foot high wall, that wall section, only 4 feet of its use of the parking lot. And if there was a way to slope that with a bank, you could maybe do a landscape bank or just something to soften the amount of brick. But from the public comment, that doesn't seem to be much of a concern as the amount of brick. It's more location, all the other things that are out of our purview. It's helpful to know why you designed the wall to try and diminish the light. That's helpful for us to know, but actually alleviating the light is out of our purview. But it at least helps us know how you inform design.
Do you have any further testimony to add in response to the citizen commentary? If not, we'll conclude the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair, can we request a quick restroom break? I know it's probably 5 minutes.
The commission will be in a 5-minute recess. This meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission is back in order. We have concluded the evidentiary portion of the hearing, so far as I know, unless any member of the commission wishes to reopen that. Otherwise, we are in a position to deliberate. If anyone wants to make a motion, they can do so. Otherwise, we can have a discussion.
Bit of discussion. We offered up or discussed or mentioned the possibility of a continuance. Might we inquire if that's something they would prefer? Or?
Well, in talking on the continuance line, before we get to talking about those, I've got a lot of information that has been presented tonight that wasn't in the package or for consideration that we had before we get this. I'm not making a decision here, but I've got some time and some thinking and some looking at standards to see what we need to do, what I think we need to do. I can't speak for anybody else on the commission.
This is an unusual application.
It
We
is.
don't see very many like this. I can't think of any others in 5 years.
Yeah.
And beyond, Tom, the points that you've made about us needing specific, we have a defined range of action, of authority. I think there's certainly the possibility that they might be able to make some modest improvements to the plan that might change a decision were we to try to take a decision tonight. And I would certainly that would be kind of the direction I would be leaning. On the topic of light pollution or what have you, no, we don't have an explicit standard. But I think when we talk about congruousness, there is an element of fitting in, which is part of our purview. And I think in that sense, thinking how this will fit into the neighborhood beyond what the bricks look like and what the planting design is within our purview. And it may not be explicitly so, but it would be part of my consideration at whatever point in time we came to a vote.
And I understand that perspective, but from a statutory direction, we've got very clear standards. One, we have to follow the standards, and if it's not in those standards by statute, it's not ours. Okay, I'm not saying they're not important decisions. All of that stuff that was raised tonight, I think, was valid questions, valid points of view. I'm not trying to discount anybody's point of view, but I'm just saying from our perspective, on a legal side of the story, and I'm not an attorney, so we may want to get the village attorney back in to differentiate some of this, but my understanding of this is that we're held to those guidelines, and personally, I don't know anything in the guidelines that talks about things such as whether there's a drainage pond or not, whether there's light things there. The tree issue is pretty well limited to canopy. Well, canopy is usually up here and has very little to do with light. So I think we're making it a stretch to try to bring it in under something and say, well, yeah, we really do have this thing, but this thing is really only around the historical perspective, not about the engineering of it. Much of it is, and I use engineering as a thing. So there's parts, because this is something that we don't do often, parking lots, I would like some time to be able to say, to go back and look at the standards, see what we can and really can and can't do, because we don't look at this. I mean, this is a new beast. In the 6 years I've been here, this is the first parking lot or almost 6 years I've been here, that's the first parking lot we do. And I think it would be prudent, and even maybe prudent, to bring in legal counsel to answer some of the jurisdictional questions as well at this point, because it is so different than anything else we do.
And I also would think that it's not hugely germane to the resort whether this got approved today or 30 days from today.
That's their decision and not mine.
That's up to them.
But my decision is I would like to take some time to sit down and look at our standards, look at what we've got, ask legal questions if I have them, and taking a vote tonight is not going to let me do that.
Reading from the standard, the mission of the Historic Preservation Commission is to preserve and improve that which is congruous with the special character of the village of Pinehurst. I would think that the special character includes the general overall ambiance, which would include headlights in people's windows, light pollution, safety.
And that, again, I think then that's a question we ought to go back to council and ask. I don't think that's a question that I'm comfortable with saying that falls under the general ambiance, because the statute goes back and says we have to have these guidelines, and we can't go outside the guidelines. You're talking to an area that I'm not comfortable of doing by saying, lumping it under just what you said. So you may be right. You may be 100% right. I don't know. But I think it's worth asking council before we go in any further to that. My personal opinion, not anybody else's. So I would like to recommend that we adjourn it to allow us time to take a look at what we've got and seek the legal advice if we need to seek, if we feel we need it.
Make that in the form of a motion?
I would make a motion that we adjourn this until the next meeting to give us time.
Continue this until
the next meeting.
All right.
To give us time to take a look at what we really do have and don't have and what we have jurisdiction over because of the broadness of this.
I would second that.
Tom has made a motion. Is there a second?
I would second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion of the motion?
Just to add, I think that's wise because there was information presented tonight that was helpful as well in the presentation form, and I think it gives the applicant more time to come back and address what everyone's going to say here tonight. So maybe it's a more complete application when it comes back next month.
Well,
They don't,
Or not.
they can bring new material, but they're not required to.
as I understand the motion, you've simply moved that we continue this case to the next month's meeting without making a decision.
Yes, and that would be the 25th, correct, of August.
And your motion would not deal one way or another with whether additional materials could be submitted by the applicant between now and then. Doesn't.
They can or can't, I'm not, my motion does not deal with that.
Just want to make sure that we understand the motion. Any discussion of the motion that's been made and seconded? Hearing none, I'll poll the commissioners. Richard? Aye. Tom?
Aye.
Eric? Aye. Kara?
Aye.
John, aye.
Aye.
All right, gentlemen, your case has been continued till next month. Thank you for your attendance and all the information you have provided to us.
Appreciate it.
Now, we have another case.
I want to go back to that, though, because I think we need to go back to Alex. Where did Alex go? Did he see something? I want to get hit, because I think he's the one that probably ends up having to go to council and/or.
But
It shouldn't take but a second.
Oh, sorry. That's all right.
Alex, can we borrow you, please?
is this part of, yeah,
Yeah, and I just, right, well, you're going to stay until the end of this?
I would suggest that, that this would come after we have completed the business of
Okay.
this meeting.
That's fine,
And
as long as Alex is going to be here, that's fine.
Okay, gentlemen, please come in. Retrieve your seats.
There we go.
Excuse me. May have had more time than you thought you were going to have, but now you're back. Just for the record, we are resuming the hearing on COA 2022-00125 involving 204 Dundee Road. The hearing was temporarily continued to allow the applicants to address some issues that had come up in the course of the hearing. Are you ready to provide some additional information, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please proceed.
Oh, okay, I have a photocopy here, or no, excuse me, a copy of the original. Did we get, Maria, did we make a copy? Oh, you got it.
On the
okay.
monitor there for
Duh.
everyone to see.
Sorry.
Okay, please explain to us what Exhibit X is.
Exhibit X would be the house viewed from the right side if you're standing in the rear, if you're facing the rear of the house, standing on the left, looking at the house, showing where the existing house stops and the screen porch starts with the ridge height and the hip roof on the right side indicated, and then just basically what the screen porch would look like with the screened area in these, where it looks like it's screened, and then siding above that going up the, that gable roof that's like a half a gable roof. It's that's about a 3-on-12 pitch.
Okay, Exhibit X will be admitted into the record of this proceeding as part of as a supplemental part to the application. Do commissioners have any questions?
Just so that I'm sure I'm looking at the right perspective, the solid portion underneath where it says ridge and hip, that is covering the screen porch.
No, sir, that's beyond that. That's actually.
That's part of the addition.
That's part of the addition. That
And
gives
then
you perspective.
below that is the angle of the roof that is on the screen porch.
Correct, yeah.
And am I seeing paneling, if you will,
Those panels are screened as a screen porch.
I think you mean.
The siding, the lines
That's
indicate
siding.
siding.
Okay.
It matches the rest
Just
of the
wanted to
house.
be sure I knew what I was looking at.
Yeah, that's siding. The lines indicate siding on the house.
So that's going to match the siding, existing siding.
Yes,
the
sir,
rest of the
yeah,
house.
everything we use will be the same material that's on there now.
All right, I don't know if commissioners had concluded their questioning on other aspects of this application, but if not, you have an opportunity to do that, as well as to ask any questions about this new exhibit. Not hearing anything. Chair is prepared to rule that the evidentiary portion of this hearing is now concluded. Disagreement with that? Very well. We are now in deliberations. We can have a motion, we can have a discussion, whatever you all wish to do.
I would be prepared to make a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2022-00125, and find that the proposed major work at 204 Dundee Road is consistent with historic district standards and deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, including Exhibit X, and the findings of fact.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the commissioners. Richard? Aye. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes. Kara?
Yes.
John, yes.
Aye.
Congratulations, it wasn't easy, but you got your certificate of appropriateness.
Well, I apologize for not being more prepared.
Nice drawing on the spur of the moment, though.
Yeah,
I thought I had that turned off.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, yeah. It looks like I had more time than I thought.
Than we thought, too.
Yeah, that last one really took a lot of time.
Thank you
We
very much,
appreciate
Joe.
it, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good evening.
Can't forget my brick.
Now, that concludes the public hearing, except for any discussion we may want to have about the continued case.
I think out there talking, so we may have to wait a moment. Well,
I don't.
We
think
can
this-
adjourn the public portion.
Yeah,
we
we're-
can adjourn the
we're-
public portion.
Well, it's still a public hearing, because it
All right, if they come back
concerns
in, yes.
that matter. I think that's the way I'd like to handle it.
While we're waiting, we want to pick a date and time for next work session.
Alex? Now the man of the hour. Many hours. All right, we have continued the resort's application for the parking lot for 1 month, and members of the commission have queries about additional help that we may need in order to decide that case.
Okay.
Tom, why don't you carry that?
Well, I guess probably one of the core questions I have and that we have had, and I think you were privy to, or maybe you were in the room, I don't know if you were elsewise engaged, but was jurisdictional issues and such things as lights, light pollution, and some of the other things that I think we got into that I have a question, and I suspect some others may have a question as to whether we have jurisdiction to get into those things. And that's why I actually went to the point of, part of the reason I went to the point of asking for the adjournment, if you will, or the continuance of the matter, so we could get that answered. And there was a ton of stuff that got put out that wasn't originally in the case, not because anything staff did, but because of it, we don't do parking lots very often. So I thought it would be good to step back, take a look at what we do and don't have, and come make sure we approach this thing from the right answers.
Sure. And so that's the right thing, what you're asking. And don't ever hesitate. Now, thank you, Alfred, for, being sort of the staff lead on this for the commission. But if you guys have any questions even in the hearing, a lot of times during that, I almost came up here to try to speak a little bit clearer. I wasn't sure where it would go, or, I've got everyone's eyes and ears now, right? I can see that.
And it's legitimate to do outside of,
Yeah,
it's not exploitation.
and it would have been difficult as well in front of residents who made comments and obviously have a strong personal feeling about the case. And honestly, this group cannot take any of that in consideration when acting on applications for COAs. So back to your question. So parking areas, parking lot, doesn't matter, are classified as a minor work item. So there's probably a good reason that in most cases that it is a minor work item, because we are looking at objective type standards, right? We're not looking at, is it congruous with the special character of the district? And that is your charge. That is your charge from up here. Statutes started it years ago. North Carolina has a beautiful heritage. There's Murphy to Manio. There's all kind of features in between that architectural related or otherwise, right? So it's a very important mission that you have to uphold. However, within that scope, it starts to narrow down, like what our first part of our meeting was today, is that you put together standards. Before, it used to be guidelines, which is probably
Same thing, different title.
it is. So those standards or guidelines previously are to be your tool to exercise your judgment and discretion on whether or not a project is congruous with the special character of your district. So it's got to be based on some sort of survey or report, which you're required to do initially. If you're going to establish a landmark, establish a district, you got to further take that to the State Historic Preservation Office and get their okay on that. And then you start to apply your judgment in reviewing these cases. So no, parking lots in general, I would say, are, as a standalone project, are, I would say, widely not reviewed by historic preservation commissions for that reason. A lot of work that staff does when we get these in, and I will say personally, this project in particular, I made the judgment call that it must be a major work, right? I thought that through at length for many reasons. My final determination, the only reason and why it was elevated as a major work, which was reflected in the staff report and what Alfred pointed to in his presentation, height of that brick wall. The height of that brick wall does not meet the standard. Brick and stacked stone walls along the street side of a property are limited to 2.5 feet in height. 4 feet, obviously, more, right? Hypothetically, someone could propose a parking area that met the standards, which were in your staff report. There are basically 3 of them. Don't locate it in the front yard, right? Exactly. It wasn't in the right-of-way, which I don't know why that's in there, because right now, there's no purview of the right-of-way for this commission. 2, and these are all shoulds, that you take into account existing landscaping. So they're putting it over, in large, a cleared area. Yes, that had been part of its stormwater management for that site, where it wasn't even required to meet stormwater management requirements, and now will be. And we have, as a technical review committee, have been reviewing the lighting plan, the stormwater detention system that they're proposing with the calculations to meet. So the residents across Barrett Road who are downhill obviously won't be negatively impacted by that, which should never have been the case. So if a parking area were proposed that met those standards and then has to meet the PDO standards for the perimeter landscaping, which can be done by berming or a combination of berming with plantings, and can also be done by using a wall. If a 4-foot wooden fence, which would meet the side yard historic standards, were proposed around the perimeter with landscaping, it's likely you guys would never see a proposal similar to this request. So a lot of that initial work that staff does when we get called about a question, somebody wants to do a fence, somebody wants to do some exterior painting and trim work, or I forget what you guys had done right when you moved in, Kara, or a new driveway configuration. John, you've been through a new white picket fence as well, right? So we look at it, and then we have to pull those standards, especially if it's going to be something that's going to be a minor work. We have to, similar to how you guys come to a conclusion, we've got to get the facts from the applicant that it A, B, C, it met it all and goes, right? Well, if it's not going to be our call and then pushes it to you guys, we're still pulling those applicable standards. And we went through, I went through, Alfred, Maria, and I went through, and we pulled those standards and put them there in your staff report. So our professional opinion is what you have in your staff report, what Alfred had on the PowerPoint presentation. That's kind of your box, if you will, for reviewing this particular application for those items. The overall congruity at some times can come into play, but you have to look at the reason or justification why you chose to maybe go beyond what you have in your adopted standards and made and exercised a judgment call on congruity based on another topic that may or may not have been brought up during the hearing.
So Alfred highlighted that the 2.5-foot restriction and the fact that for screening of commercial properties, there can be an exception.
An allowance. Mm-hmm.
But we are not obligated to do that.
And neither is staff. So here's the other thing. It's pretty obvious that the brick wall didn't meet the standard. So there's no reason why I should have sat there and, thought about this for 2 weeks about why it is. But it's that other standard that you meant, where I have, as staff, have approved a taller fence than the 4 foot in the side or rear because it was screening either a parking lot from an adjacent residence, or in this case, it was trash. It was a trash dumpster. A residence didn't need to sit there and see a trash receptacle for a commercial property, strictly commercial properties you picked up. But it says fence. If it said fence or wall, I could have hypothetically issued a minor work COA for this project. And again, that was a judgment call that I made to elevate it. I did this to you. No. So now.
Canopy could have come into it.
So now that it has been elevated, right, and then we're pulling in every standard, whether it's a should or we give you everything. There's always that one, removal of trees, 12 inches is our number, diameter breast height along the street side, or shall not unreasonably compromise that canopy. So then you have to think, well, what is unreasonable? The best we could do was give you the objective criteria that was the number, right? 23. How many are they planting? They have to plant those trees. It's not because they're trying to do a like-for-like replacement or anything. It's a landscaping requirement that they have to, and it has to be a mix of longleaf pines, and it also has to be a mix of understory.
PDO.
Correct. So there's another reason why, you know, that landscaping plan we felt was important to share with you. And you get a breakdown, you know, of the newly installed plantings. And now, again, plan view is one thing, you know, and they can't, as nice of a rendering as you can prepare, you're not going to be able to incorporate the trees that are going to be kept and what that new landscaping is going to do, along with a, you know, 9-foot tapering down brick wall partially pierced. I do think, my personal opinion, professional opinion, is that it was appropriate to consider and think about siting of adjusting the location, if you will, maybe to see what can.
I think the two real good questions were yours about the wall in its entirety, and can you do it a different way? I think that was, and then go back to yours too. Yeah, shifting the site over, I think, were valid questions to help canopy reasons or help the blocking of some of this stuff. But beyond that is where it got kind of drawn out. Safety, lighting, all of that stuff is just not in our purview to drag in, and to try to drag it in by what you were saying, I just think is walk on a real thin ice for us.
Careful, we're not getting into deliberating on this case. This is background that.
And I think by being witness of everything, the three of us will be able to, I would say advise, for lack of a better term, but we'll have conversations with the applicant on what material might, you know, I'm sure they picked up on it, they listen. I mean, I will say this project has been in some sort of design work for over a year. So I'm sure they have put in a lot there might be some, because of the age of some of our more established landmarks, if you will, the hotel property, another instance is the First Health More Regional Campus. It's a utility nightmare over there because things have been put in and have been patched and then extended, and so they may have other reasonings about siting, pinching, not being able to meet turning radius for a fire truck, for instance. I mean, this might be stuff that we all need to hear and see. How many trees can be saved that meet that criteria of 12 inches DBH? The bulk of those on the plan south there may have been 10 inches, 8 inches. So that's additional information that they can certainly provide.
Tom, you had raised the concept of maybe Alex or someone consulting with the village council.
If we have those questions in terms of jurisdiction, if there's still jurisdictional questions, I think that's the only logical place I know of to do that. That's his job.
So we will defer to Alex and staff to determine the extent to which they think they need or should do that.
Alex has questions about it. If we're satisfied with his, I think his answering then to them, I think that's okay. If not, then we can probably make a request to say, okay, bring counsel in on this deal because we need legal guidance now. And that's not uncommon for many HPCs to have counsel at every case that they see, every COA they see is not uncommon for many municipalities to have them there just for that purpose.
And
we choose not to, but.
Just ask one other hypothetical. If hypothetically we were to deny this request, there is recourse beyond us for the resort to pursue.
They can appeal it.
Right.
Whichever decision we make, a neighbor can, if we approve it, the neighbor can appeal. If we disapprove it, the resort can appeal. I don't know whether they'd be heard or not, but, you know.
They can,
They have
then
to
you
be
get
able
into
to.
standing issues, which is another whole legal issue.
They have to show they've got standing, that's correct.
But the courts have come out, and that last case was pretty clear that that's not something we can address at this point, but not something that's necessarily addressed at this point.
I'm making no predictions, I'm just asking
Well,
questions.
I understand, and I'm trying to answer your question.
And
But you don't have to. so.
proximity, which has been typically criteria that have been used to determine standing, didn't hold in the Cherry case with the city of Raleigh. It really didn't, which was interesting. It's about,
Some of the things, well, I don't, hypothetical, if they come in and talk about a traffic pattern issue, somebody comes in and talks about a traffic pattern issue, and it's just their opinion, that's not legitimate.
Okay, this is very helpful. Thank you, Alex. We
Appreciate it.
glad.
I will now entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are now out of the public hearing. We are in a hearing, which is public, so you can stay.
Alex, I think he's got another issue. He's flagging a piece of paper over there.
Well, we've got the minor work items and COAs, which
Busy
is
month.
before us. Now, Alex, what do you have for us?
That's our project that we were working on.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion
Oh, here we go.
that we ask Alex to elevate to the council, or however you might legally phrase that.
So David and John gave some pretty helpful revisions and edits. If you're confident with me taking those and making those edits, if you want to make a motion to recommend that the village council adopt these.
Were you forgetting the addition of that whole parking lot section as well?
I make a motion
yeah,
that we take the revisions that we worked on earlier today, and Alex has the final copy of, and send those to the village council for final approval.
There's a second.
Second.
You said that way better than me.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's try a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. It passes unanimously. Is there any other any other business?
Date and time for next work session.
Or
Next work session.
work session? Shall we schedule a work session prior to our next monthly, at the time, on the day of our next monthly meeting?
Yes.
You want to take August off and then
Let's-
do one in September?
Let me look at the scheduling. I do, but, because I got to look at the next council meeting schedules. I believe there's only one meeting in August. So, our topic here may get pushed to September. And I want to make sure I've got, I want at least you two there.
That's their problem, not ours at this point. We made the motion to bump it upstairs when they review it.
So I would
Goes to their
like to
calendar.
get this, hopefully get a decent resolution on that. Then that way we're a little bit clear and past that, so we can focus on the other topics.
Yeah, well, we can go on with the other topics, which are independent of this whole thing, because it's not even in the same section.
I don't want to fight two fronts.
Okay, that's from your perspective, and I respect that.
All right, may we have a motion to adjourn until our next scheduled meeting in August?
So moved.
Second.
That's August 25th, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or adjourned.
Yay.